Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast number 149. I'm your host, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Johnny V, back in the Milwaukee studios.
Yeah, we are. We're actually back here and back from a trip to Charlotte, to Augusta to Charlotte, and everywhere in between, it felt like. But it was a good time. It was a good Worlds. I think a lot of people had fun, and a lot of people, well, two people won.
I think we all won. Everyone that got to watch coverage, whether it was live or recorded, or got to take in some recaps, or the people that were there physically taking it in, I think we were all a bunch of winners. And there were some winners in some side games, but ultimately, good time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely
I'm still waiting for the 5th, the 6th, and the final 9. 5th and 6th round and the final 9.
Hold your breath. Hold your breath on that. There's a lot of discussion about that.
Of course there is.
You know,
and unfortunately, it won't die even come next year.
No.
Regardless of how many rounds there are or aren't, whether it's 4 or 44, next year there's going to be a lot of similar conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes back to like we'll say 5 and a final, I think that would satiate people's need for golf. But there are some people out there that are still screaming for 6 or 6.5 or 7
or 3.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I haven't heard anyone say we need even less. And I'll admit, I was just about to. We talked to Ricky Wysocki on Saturday night. If you didn't see that, please go out and see it. It was probably one of my favorite interviews to do. Ricky joined us in our actual hotel room. The decor was up to par and then some. But Ricky joined us in the hotel room after we had been on the show for a little while, kind of doing a recap on Saturday night. He was, not that he's normally uptight, but he was certainly loose, and we were having a really good time with it. He was interacting with the people that were on the show, watching along and participating along on the YouTube chat, as we always encourage everyone to do. And it was a lot of fun to do. Obviously, he was in a good mood, and we were ready for the week to be done. So go back. I'll look for that timestamp even at some point here.
It's
where he joined us.
It's about an hour and a half from the end of the podcast. I put it out there so that people could see. I said, hey, I know that I don't push the podcast very often out here on the website because you either know about it by now or you don't if you're on those web boards usually. And I said, but it is worth your time. We got Ricky about 3 hours after he was crowned, and I think that it's well worth the listen.
Yeah, so make sure you go out and find it. Again, it's there. It's also in all of our regular podcast downloadable formats and everything else. So we have spoken to Ricky. I feel like his official championship duties and obligations have been met. It's like, are you going to go to Disney World? No. Are you going to be on SmashBoxx? Yes. All right. That's pretty much what you have to look at. And so Ricky got it out of the way right away on Saturday. Spoiler alert, we're going to have the women's world champion joining us here tonight, Paige Pierce.
Assuming that she gets to watch her PLL finale.
I know. I had reached out to her today, and I said, you were expecting to have you, right? And she said, oh, damn it. My PLL finale is on tonight. Pretty Little Liars. Yep. And so I know she had that on her agenda, along with some dinner with Madison and some other friends. She said she's going to check in with us at some point when she's done with dinner and everything else. So we can't give you an exact time frame on having Paige join us, but we know that she will be tonight. And in a similar fashion, we've got Dana Vici. He says he's going to be joining us. He was also just a few moments ago on his way home. So whenever he gets back and gets all set up at home, gets everything situated on the home front, he'll join us, and it'll be interesting to get Dana's take from afar. With him being at home in Illinois, he didn't get to take in the Worlds the same way you and I did, although we didn't throw any discs. He took it in all from home, so I'm really excited to kind of hear his take on it. Another take that I'm excited to hear, we talked to Ricky about how many rounds needed to be played. One person I was going to send a message to, and maybe he's out there listening right now, he typically is, I'm going to reach out to Paul Macbeth. I'd be curious to know if Paul feels like that's enough rounds. And maybe somebody had talked to him. I know I didn't talk to him specifically about that. And I could see a jovial, response like, oh, I was ready for the 5th round or whatever.
Of course.
In all seriousness, I'd love to know as to what his take is as to if he feels like that is enough golf. In fact, Paul is very much a student of the game and a big sports guy. I'm going to say I feel like he's probably got some traditionalism in him in terms of the relationship to golf. That golf and the majors and the big events, well, all events I believe in golf are usually 4 rounds, but I think he's going to side with that, especially when we're looking at rounds that are on really solid courses like we saw this weekend. So
apparently Paul's already gone on record saying it is the best format yet.
Okay.
But that's not to say that maybe he feels 5 would be even better than 4 versus 7. So I don't know. We'll get his input on it at some point.
At some point. I just I think again he's obviously a few strokes or a few holes short of possibly, and that's again a big possibly trying to hunt down Ricky. But I would be curious, with all of that bias aside, I'd be curious to know what he says. So, but if you guys said he's been on record, again that doesn't really surprise me. And Paul, you've never heard Paul say, "Oh, if I just had one more round, I could catch so and so." He's never said that before, so I can't imagine he's going to start saying it now. So, congrats, of course, to Ricky Wysocki, our men's champion, our 2-time and defending champion, Ricky Wysocki, and, of course, our 4-time women's world champion in Paige Pierce. So, glad you guys could join us. Again, we're here. It's the aftermath of the PDGA Pro World Championships, the earliest Pro World Championships we've seen in over 20 years, now that it was held in mid-June. And next year, as we talked about a little bit earlier in the week, next year it's going to be the latest that we've seen it in over 20 years that I know of, as I've been around for 20-plus years for the Pro Worlds. It will be held in September next year, and I think that's that may be a complete... There's people that will wake up, possibly, and require either hand warmers and or mittens at some point. If it's cold enough, come September, I wouldn't be surprised if some of our southern golfers have mittens and or hats or long sleeves if it becomes a frigid 44 by the time they wake up on early September morning. So, and that's not even a Neil Diamond reference. Great song, though.
Thankfully, it is early September. I mean, we could see 44 degrees. I think it'll probably be a little warmer than that, but you never know. And I mean, I've seen Paige in little mittens and like a fleece type thing when it's been 50 degrees. Mm-hmm. So she is definitely one that you need to look at. So, and she is she's traditionally a southern golfer from Texas.
So it will be I'm guessing it will be a very different atmosphere. We talked about 80s and 90s along with 80 and 90% humidity, and next year in Vermont in September, early September, it could be a very, very different story. So it'll be interesting to see.
And I did see 1 or 2 comments about people from the north maybe feeling that the event was too soon, that a lot of our northern golfers didn't have a chance. Didn't have a chance. It felt like their season was just starting in June because a lot of us don't get started till May 1st. A lot of our courses, baskets will go in May 1st. That really gives you about a month and a half of practice. I don't personally agree with that argument, because if you're that serious about the golf and you really feel like you have a chance to win, you're probably a touring golfer that's been playing since March at the Memorial or Gentlemen's Club.
Well, I think to echo exactly what you're saying, if someone isn't in mid-season form, they should find a way to get there by that time, regardless of when the event actually takes place. So,
and I think I'm going to like September. I think September is going to be a great time because you're going to, like most sports, I think that it should be towards the end of your season, kind of a culminating event, if it is truly our world championship, and it shows which of our golfers are, I'll say, Iron Men or women, and the most healthy at that point. We're going to see, you almost want the season to wear on a player to get that championship. Who can survive till the end? Because if Worlds isn't going to be a marathon, then at least have the event at the end of the year culminating your marathon of a season, we'll say.
Sure. And some may say that certainly has impact when we're looking at things like the USDGC in October, or this year as well. Even after the USDGC, we're going to have the Disc Golf Pro Tour finale. So the season continues to lengthen a little bit on the front end and more so on the back end. And it's going to be taking more and more out of our players as we move forward in years to come. Really, one would argue there's almost becoming not enough weekends. We have so much golf, and the level of the events is rising where a lot of people want to be at the really good events, and we're getting a lot of really good events. So
yeah, we are.
I know used to be plenty of players that said, "Oh, October USDGC. Once that's done, I'm done. Pack up the disc, call it a day."
Not anymore. Not if you want to win the NT Tour.
Yeah, exactly. So it will be interesting to see as that endurance factor, and I think that's one of the big words that a lot of people talk about when you say marathon when you're referencing the World Championships. So marathon to some degree also equals endurance, and so pushing it back to September, it's just maybe a little bit different form of endurance, like you said.
Yeah.
Later in the year, injuries and so on and so forth. Speaking of injuries, real quick, we'll give a status update. I know that one particular person, Madison Walker, she had posted recently saying, "All right, the world is over. I'm not fully healed. I haven't been fully healed in a while, and I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to officially take off for a few weeks right now." I don't know if she said 4 or 6 or 8 weeks or whatever it is, but she's going to take a serious amount of time up, possibly till Pittsburgh.
4 to 8 weeks, hoping to make it back by Vibram.
Okay, which is first weekend of September on the Labor Day weekend.
And it's all about her wrist and arm that is having an issue. If you saw any video, you probably didn't because Madison didn't make any feature cards. Sorry, Mads. But she was wearing green tape from her wrist all the way down to her elbow almost. It was just one strip of green tape. It was that kinesiology tape, I believe it is.
KT tape.
And she said it helped her out quite a bit. She said she threw some of her best shots she's ever thrown, but then she also threw some of the worst shots she couldn't control. So it really was, it's a health issue for her. So I hope she takes some time, heals up. She said she was working with a friend of the show, Seth from Disc Golf Strong, and going to work on getting herself back into playing shape.
Well, we wish her the best of luck, and I think, speaking of playing shape, I think we have Dana Vici on the line. Let's get to it.
Boom goes the dynamite.
And beautiful friend of the show, Dana Vici. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. It feels good to be on here with you guys. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I had a lesson tonight. Ashley had Birdie Babes League and ran a little late, so just walked in the door and here we are.
I wasn't going to go there, but you just said something, so now I am going to bring up something. I almost reached out to you yesterday about this, Johnny. And maybe I shouldn't, but here's what I'm going to say. We're challenged frequently with getting women into the sport of disc golf. True statement?
Yes, and let me guess that your argument is going to be, why do we call these events like babes and chicks, and is that your discussion?
Yeah, if somebody wanted to jump on the possibly a sexism, or there's a lot of different cards or angles to look at it, and I'll be the first to say I wish that there wouldn't necessarily be some of those terms or associations.
I can understand where you're coming from, and to a point I do agree with you, but
are we not playing into a little bit of this? Maybe, I don't want to say just not so serious nature, because it doesn't have to be serious, but are we playing into it just a little bit?
Maybe. Dana,
does everything have to be pink for women? For example,
no.
Pink this and pink this, and are we playing into some stereotypes and some...
Yeah, yes and no, but the stereotypes sometimes fit. Dana, who runs that league?
Gabby Aristonoustis.
Okay, and
great individual who I know and love. She's great. Tommy, she's married to Tommy, correct?
Tommy A. Yep.
Okay, go on.
And so Gabby runs it. Gabby's a female.
Mm-hmm.
She does not have any problem with it.
Nope, she probably named it herself.
And I'll say this: on one hand, it might be a little stereotypical. On the other hand, for a fact that's probably a woman's league. Whether you like it or not, it maybe helps with advertising and things of that. It's not just a Tuesday night, park league or something like that.
I don't expect it to be Susie Slasher League. Okay, like I'm not. I don't. It doesn't need to be rough or tough
Is
either.
that the cousin of Johnny Heiser?
Yes, Johnny Heiser, Susie Slasher. So I'll just say that I don't really see too much of a problem with it personally. And yes, maybe we'll get past it at some point. Maybe we won't. I'm sure there's other sports that do the same thing. I'm sure there's the bowling babes and the croquet ladies.
The cutesy croquet
team.
I'm just throwing it out there. That's all. And again, I'm not ripping on any organization. There was another name actually though that popped up somewhere online yesterday, and all I just thought was, it seems like if it continues defeated in that, is there an element of seriousness that maybe doesn't go along with it, or that is almost plays into it too much? And I'm not throwing her under the bus by saying this, but I remember having a conversation with Madison Walker a year or so ago, and we were talking about some women's disc golf apparel. It was a very generic conversation about women's disc golf apparel, and she's just like, there's just so many of these things I just would never wear for a lot of these reasons we're talking about.
Yeah,
I think she's looking for that. There's no reason why it can't be serious and professional and look, not your stereotypical pink. Anyway, we're gonna move on. Just something to throw out there, something to think about.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry. Way to get me started.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not mad. I'm not worked up about it. What's that?
The Chicks with Discs League?
There's all sorts of names, and some of the names are really clever, and I love the play on words, or the Disc Girls Gone Wild. I mean, one of the biggest and best women's event of the entire year. I could see how that name itself though may turn off other women, but anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. I'm looking at the board. There's an interesting poster.
Oh wow! Looks like we have a fan. I think she plays.
Not anymore.
I think
I was gonna say I think Anna plays, but maybe not. Maybe she plays Anna Paige, and that's just her local nickname.
Oh.
Wow.
Anyway.
Okay, Dana. Other than Worlds, were there any other big events or anything going on this weekend?
Oh boy, there were some events up in Minnesota. The 10K Lakes Open in Rockville, Minnesota. 23-person open field. Couple possible Worlds contenders playing in this event. Minnesota's top two players, Kale LaVisca and Alex Geisinger. Both very, very good players. Kale is definitely known as one of the best Woods players out there. He's got that Heiser flip-up game, and just that Woods game is just always so dialed in. But he was not at Worlds. I talked to him last week, and he's got some course projects and some things going on, so he opted to stay home. He's pretty busy up there with all that, but he found some time to get to this event and got himself a victory, a little $600 payday. Finishing second, Mitchell Privet, and then third was Alex Geisinger. So Kale opted to stay home, probably saved himself some money, maybe got another new course or had some meetings, whatever it might be, but was not at Worlds. And on the women's side, Michelle Schultz got the victory in the three-person FPO field.
I'll say this: I think Kale missed an opportunity here at this Worlds. This Worlds, I'm not going to say he would have won, but it was a heavily wooded course, and I think that he missed the boat coming to this one. Not that next year is going to be that much different. We're going to have one pretty wooded course and one more open course, but I always hate Kale not making these big events because I think he's always a top 5 contender. So, but yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, certainly missed.
Definitely. Here in Illinois, we had a pretty big event, the Sinisippi Open down in Sterling. It was an iOS event, split divisions. I believe it filled up both days, but I made it out on Saturday. This is always one of my favorite events. I really like the course. It's a beautiful course, throwers course. But unfortunately, I didn't putt all that well. I ended up in 5th place, which if anyone was interested. Winning, though, Brian Earhart, one of the best sidearms in the game. I've talked about him here in the past, but Brian put together 2 really solid rounds on a tough course, and the conditions got pretty windy. But he got himself 1st place, got a $500+ payday. Coming down from Wisconsin, Keith Warren finished in 2nd with Taylor Smala and Nick Snelling finishing just above me in 3rd place. But well-ran event. iOS crew always does a pretty darn good job. They know what they're doing. I don't think there were no women, no pro women players at the event, so nothing to report on there. But I think over the weekend they had probably 180, almost 200 players, so pretty big event. Have you guys ever been to Mississippi? I know that it's been a long-running event. It's an old-time Illinois favorite course. Terry, Johnny?
Yeah, we've both been to Mississippi.
Yeah.
I think I've been there twice. Once for sure. I thought I went a second time, but
I've been there at least, at 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 times.
I used to love it when it was, because it used to always be traditionally held over the 4th of July weekend. For many years it was that way. And we would, back before wife and kids and real life, we would drive home from Mississippi to Milwaukee, and inevitably it was nighttime, and you just drive and just watch fireworks the whole way home. From every little city you pass through, you seemed to catching fireworks. And it was always kind of one of my favorite things about that particular event to me. I have no clue how well or didn't well we played, but I always remember the drive home specifically for that.
I know that, and I was going to try and find it, and it will take me too long. Around 2000 or 2001, very early on in my pro career, I found myself on a card, and I'm going to assume it was lead card, because it had the 2 card mates were Al Sugar Shack, who was touring around quite extensively, and another guy you've heard of, Cam Todd. And I have this photo. It was, to date this, it was when panoramic photos could be taken with a regular camera, and it was, for whatever reason, even though it wasn't necessary for this shot, it was the 3 of us. And again, I know I just found it and scanned it not too long ago, or took a photo of it, and it was hot. It was hot just like it was in Atlanta. Insane humidity and insane heat. And Al Sugar Shack's just kind of standing there, and I'm standing there as well, and Cam Todd just has this look on his face like, I don't want to be standing here for this effing picture. But it was the 3 of us, and I should go back and look. I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm guessing it had to be 2000, 2001 time frame.
2000.
Somewhere around there. 2000.
Yeah, Al Sugar Shack won, Cam Todd took 2nd. You somehow dropped yourself down to 11th.
All right, yeah, so, holy cow, Cam Todd shot a 58 first round. Al Shack shot a 59, and I was in the first round with a 60.
Congratulations.
So
results from 2000, folks. Just right here for you on Smashbox.
Yep, keeping it fresh.
I loved yesteryear when I was good. Yeah.
Tell us about the time you beat Felberg.
Oh, God, which time? Which time?
Well, I took 20th place at that event in advance, losing.
Okay. So, yeah, Mississippi, great course, a lot of fun. It's been one of the longest running event courses, we'll say, in all of Illinois, if not the Midwest. I think we were there around 2000. I think that was already like the 20th annual or something like that.
Felt like it, yeah.
Yeah, it's been around for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. So there was some other random events around the U.S., but nothing really of note aside from that big one that I didn't get to watch live. PDJ World Championships. I did miss the first 10-15 minutes. Did you guys?
Were you tuned into the wrong channel or something? Was there?
Yeah.
Why weren't you watching live?
Yeah.
Anyways, we don't need to beat that dead horse. I apologize for bringing that up.
It's okay.
But yeah, I was glued to the live scoring all week, and definitely tuned into the post-production videos and tried to tune in at night to watch you guys. And the coverage that was there was very enjoyable. But, wow, where do we start, Terry?
Let's. I feel like even
Let's
though
go
we're
ahead
gonna,
and, before we get it, what was your biggest surprise of the weekend? Maybe a player that were you surprised that Paul didn't win, or what was a player that jumped out at you? Were you surprised that
Lisa Ficus. Lisa Facus. Lisa Facus. Sorry, Lisa.
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 I hate to call her such a surprise. She obviously had a stellar performance and performed, I think, a little higher than maybe a lot of people expected, just relative to the.
I just would have guessed you would have taken 7th, 6th,
exactly,
somewhere around there, and she shot herself on the lead card and well deservingly, and then dominated on the lead card. So
yeah, so
that was my biggest surprise.
My biggest surprise, honestly, one could argue Adam Hammes, who played very well out of Wisconsin and found himself on the lead card, and then just struggled a little bit on that final day to dip down to I think a tie for 10th. So obviously he would be a natural person to say, but I would say I'd go the reverse of that though and say my biggest surprise was Anthon with his subpar or not subpar enough performance. Josh Anthon, I mean, he struggled out there. We all know he's battling a little bit of injury and everything else. I know he had a serious game plan. I know he was there on Wednesday or Thursday. Him and Steve Rico took practicing very seriously. I remember talking to them on the phone prior to it, and they told me, they have their game plans. They know what they're going to do. They're out on the course every single day, putting and getting rounds in and getting acclimated to the weather. I think a lot of people would have to say, and maybe some fantasy leagues would say the same of the fantasy players, myself included. Josh Anthon's performance, I think, was certainly one of the biggest surprises. And one could say, well, that's not exactly a positive thing, and it wasn't. But to me, that was probably the biggest shocker out of them all. Paul and Ricky, we knew it was going to be a great battle. Yeah, I think a lot of times you can flip that coin one way or another. Adam, great weekend. Lisa, great weekend. But Josh Anthon, not in the top 10, I think, alone is surprising, let alone
Matt Oram as well.
The top few.
Not being in the top 10. Breaking his streak?
Correct.
So.
But if I were, I'd go on record and say if I were to bet Oram versus Anthon in terms of finish, I still would have picked Anthon, though. And I would have picked them both in the top 10.
Yeah.
But I would have picked Anthon ahead of Oram even, so.
Yeah, definitely surprised seeing Anthon not performing as well. Eagle McMahon, not quite the finish I know he was looking for. He was another person that was there very early. He takes his practice very seriously, especially for these big events. He's there well ahead of time. I think him and Anthon might have they're a stroke away from each other, but those were definitely two names that I would have put on my fantasy roster if I had done one. But Eagles had kind of a slow mid-season here after his hot start out there at the Australian Open. So, but looks like he's back home in Boulder, getting those batteries recharged before heading off to Europe. So, I'd expect him to turn things back around to that Australian Open level.
I'm sorry, are you saying that you feel like that's your biggest surprise, or what would you say was yours?
I mean, well, the Anthon thing, definitely. Boy, I thought it was going to be a shootout between Paul and Ricky. I thought it was going to be a lot closer versus, Paul did kind of get in there at the end and make things a little bit closer, but I all along thought we were going to see it come down to the wire. But I watched Paul's first round, and was it his first round? One of his rounds on Jomez, whichever round that was. He might have had a few, but he was really off. He started out the round really poorly, missed some very short putts, was just not hitting those clean, crisp lines that you come to expect from Paul Macbeth, and that was kind of a shocker because this is, as you guys talked about earlier, this is Worlds, and this is what everyone's amped up for, zoned in for, and we obviously know that Paul, being one of the favorites and one of the best players in the world, this is why he plays, to win world championships, and to see him not so crisp during that round was a little surprising. But then obviously he still managed to shoot very well overall on the weekend, but I would say it wasn't a very McBeast type performance. I mean, his current rating, 1054, over his 4 rounds, he went 1039, 1027, 1025, and then 1061.
Did he?
So
you don't deserve to win with those ratings.
I was going to say, I think ratings dropped today. And
they did.
So he must have
some ratings dropped.
Yeah, well, he must have gone up because I thought he was at 1052 or 1051.
Yeah, he's 1054 right now. Ricky's at 1051.
Amazing. Can I say something about Paul? And I think, can we blame, and I'm going to use blame in quotes because he took second.
Fiance.
No, not at all. His slowdown in play, playing less events. I went back and I did just a hair of research.
No, you didn't.
I really did.
That is not allowed on this show.
I know,
but you
I'm
or
sorry.
I.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I did it. He was obviously winning world championships when he was playing a ton of events. He takes a step back, starts slowing down, only playing the big events, and he's not winning world championships. I looked, not only is this event early in the season, but every time he won a world championship, he had at least, I think, 16 to 20 events under his belt. The last 2, I think he's topped out at 14, if I remember correctly. Again, I only did a little research. Whereas of Ricky's grinding it out, playing every event. And Ricky, I think, has 16 to 20 events this year under his belt. Maybe I think it's 16. Last year had, I think, 20 plus events under his belt. I'm wondering if you really just need to, if I would like to see him maybe just grind it out next year. Oh, I guess next year Worlds is in September, so he'll have a bunch of events under his belt. But I'm wondering if that's really maybe is what's hurting him. Maybe on just a little bit of sharpness, because clearly he's still a spectacular player. Taking second place at Worlds is what so many people consider a failure. I'd love to be that kind of failure. But clearly it didn't reach his potential. He played under his rating for 3 of the 4 rounds, and he was not in contention, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he need to play more golf? I mean, I think he would argue he's clearly looking at his golf and his career for the long haul and hopes to be playing very well at a high level for many years. And I think part of that has been a very strategic move in that he's not exhausting himself as some of our other players maybe have.
And again, next year may be unique because we have Worlds in September, so he'll have a bunch of events under his belt. He'll have a bunch of practice in, I'm sure, this and that. And I'm not saying this is definitely the fault, but it being who we are and what we're supposed to do, we are supposed to look for these things and say, is this a reason or isn't it? So I just thought I'd throw it out there. I was thinking, Hannah's going to hurt you, and she can. I'd be willing to put money on it.
I know.
So what do you think, Dana?
I don't think that's I don't think it's playing a role in his performance. I'm going to say pressing so hard, like like what he was doing to Ricky 2-3 years ago, Ricky's now kind of doing to him, like with the comebacks and beating him in playoffs and all these things. And it might just be a little bit of pressing too hard, where he's got to find that McBeast mindset. And Ricky, I think it's kind of a mental thing between them two right now, where Ricky's, he's winning all these events and getting the breaks, and Paul is, he's not winning these events, and it's maybe that's kind of stacking up and making him push a little bit harder.
That could be.
But I don't think the answer is to grind it out and play harder, play more events. I think I like his approach to it, because as it is now, he's already, this is contrary to popular belief. It's not easy to travel around and play disc golf. It takes a toll on you. And, we'll see if Ricky continues with the pace he's at. outpacing him with playing events, but I do like where Paul is at, event wise, and then with his off weekends, what he's doing, because he's growing his brand, he's growing, growing disc golf, whatever, with the McBee stuff and all the other extra things that he's doing. So I like where he's going with that, but I don't know if keeping up with playing a huge number of events week in and week out is what is setting them apart.
Maybe he's just living too large in that RV.
He needs to scale it down.
Yeah, it's a little too posh, a little too nice for him in there.
Yeah, and Dana, did you listen to the Ricky interview that we did a couple hours after he was crowned, day 4?
I fell asleep.
Okay.
That was Saturday night. Yeah.
No,
I fell asleep on the couch.
I do recommend
catch it.
I do recommend going back and listening to it because it's a fantastic interview. It'll have you laughing and busting at the seams. But he did mention how Ricky even said the same thing, that he would like to slow down in events coming up. Maybe not the next couple years, but sooner rather than later. You got to wonder if that's going to take a toll on him or not, or someone. Does it even matter with all these young guns coming up, and they're gonna, you've got your Hamas and your Eagle and your Austin Turner and all these young kids that are just gonna start coming up and winning at some point. So
I think it's for those guys and for these young guys coming up that are playing. It's all about finding the right mix. What's right for you? One thing that I noticed with Eagle over the past couple of years, I know he just kind of emerged on the scene, but I liked how he attacked his touring. He would go out for a couple events and then go home and play local events, recharge the battery, and then go back out, versus attempting to go out and, all right, I'm leaving in February and I'm not coming home for 3 months, or I'm not coming home for however long. He tried that this year, and it seems like every time he goes, he's so happy to be back in Boulder. Because on his social media, he's always posting how much he loves that. So maybe for him going out for a few weeks and then coming home, recharging the batteries, that's what's gonna be successful for him. Or Paul, he's finding what's doable and repeatable for him, even though it's not necessarily resulting in wins. But I don't think that's the reason. So it's all about finding what works for you. And if working, going out there every weekend and playing 35 events, 40 events and grinding is what is going to get you to that high level, or what you think is going to get you to that high level, then do it. For me, I always enjoyed going out for 2 to 4 weeks and then coming home and recharging, playing local events, seeing family and doing the things, versus going out and trying to hit all, every weekend and every event, because there's so much involved with being on the road and then playing and relying on winning, or relying on having to win money, and getting bad breaks and spit putts and Mach 3'd and taking what tournament directors they make up crazy islands. So dealing with all that stuff every weekend and week in and week out can really grind a person down. So
yeah.
Well,
again, find what works for you.
And one of the questions vaguely that I recall asking Ricky and talking to him during the interview was something about women and lady friends and distractions, and he's like, no, I don't need any of that. I got to stay free from the distractions. So he kind of dismissed the whole love life situation. And again, you just said it. Find what works for you, and if Ricky feels that's what works for him right now, then so be it. So. Yep. Pretty funny from Ricky and his insights over there. Another conversation and talk about Pro Worlds, champions and solid play, and maybe a little bit of surprises, is I feel like we didn't see Katrina as a real threat really at all. I mean, you had mentioned, or I think Johnny mentioned, Paul Macbeth wasn't really a threat at any point during the week. After the hot start, I should say, I mean, he opened with an 8, as did Ricky. I think they both had the same 8 or 9 under par opening, but after that,
there was a
separation.
They still weren't in the lead.
Correct, but I'm just saying.
I think the leader was at 12.
Correct. McRae opened with 12.
And the rest of them went up, and Paul not quite as much. So,
but
not to say that he was completely out of it the entire time, but Paul wasn't that big of a factor. You weren't, by the third round, you're thinking, this isn't it.
Yeah. Well, and on the women's side, we talked about Lisa Fakis with her excellent performance throughout the weekend. Her very impressive putting is what comes to mind when I think about her play. And from what I saw, Katrina Allen, surprisingly not really a threat for the title either. Would you say that's kind of shocking, Dana?
Yeah. That, I mean, for so long it's been the Kat and Paige show, but then you also have to take into account Val.
Always.
Very much like, the World Championships come around, and Nate Doss is going to, no matter what kind of season he's had or how much he's played, he always seems to step it up. He's got 3 world titles. Val is almost the same way. Last year, in the whole Paige and Katrina, I don't know, I don't want to say era, but like they were both, Paige and Katrina had both been dominating the past few seasons, and Val came and played some really solid golf and got the victory. And this last week at Worlds was no different. She came out. She hasn't, been playing. They haven't been touring as heavy, but was still like a major contender, and that was exciting to see that her still in it, and with Katrina not having a great weekend, Val stepping right up, and Lisa, that was pretty exciting.
Okay, well, I'll be the first to throw it out there. I've heard there's been other conversation about it. It's tough for Kat to win if I keep getting in the way of her shots.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So I'll throw myself under the bus here. There was a time on hole number 16, so her 68th hole of the tournament. Katrina had thrown a shot on hole 16 at Fort Gordon.
So it's the one that goes down. It's got all the brush along the right, and then it's a hard left.
Yes, it's I don't know if it's 360, 350, 390, whatever it is. It does not play probably quite as far because it is downhill, and it's a pretty sharp hyzer. I would say once you get down to the opening, and then from where you are on the tee, it's at about a 9, not quite a 9 o'clock, maybe a 10 o'clock position. But anyway, I was in an area on the upper tier of that hole, and the women were throwing, and they really want to throw right at the opening, and I am off to what is their right of the opening, or to the left of it, if I'm looking at them. And a shot was coming in. Katrina had thrown, I think there was 1 or 2 maybe prior to her, but she had thrown her shot. It came in low. A skip shot is one of the most effective ways to get there. And she throws her skip shot. It skips off the ground. I noticed that it's obviously coming toward me and a couple other of the spectators that were nearby. And I jumped to get out of the way as it skipped almost perfectly straight. She's really looking for it to skip and ultimately hyzer and kind of flare out. And it skips, and it apparently skips perfectly straight, and then skips up to about 5 feet, and it actually hits the side of the camera lens. There's a little hood that many of you see on the cameras, and it hits the side of the camera right there, and then it carries still 15 feet or so, and naturally, no one could possibly feel worse than me, obviously. And at that point, there's nothing you can do. It is what it is. And as she had ultimately, she approached up to the basket. She tapped out as she walked past me. She was no more than a few feet away. I said, I think I said, "I'm sorry, Kat." And I don't know if she heard me. She had her earbuds in, or whether they were on or not. I have no idea. But I said it. I know I said it loud enough that if her earbuds weren't in, she for sure would have heard it. And then I kind of stayed clear of everything. And then after Worlds, after the entire award ceremony had taken place, as we were walking out, I kind of turned around. It was in an auditorium, and I got to the very end of the auditorium where everyone was walking, and I turned, and there she was. She was standing there with a knife. No, I'm just kidding. But she was standing there. She was just waiting or something. And it kind of startled me at first because I didn't expect anyone standing right in that position, and it was her. And I said, I again stopped, and I said, "I just want you to know I feel terrible. No one feels worse than me. I never in a million years would ever want to get in anyone's way in any way, shape, or form. And then I moved on. But anyway, I'm putting it out there for the world. You were near the tee, correct?
Yep.
And what was?
She wasn't happy. I mean, again,
nor should she be.
She was having a bad round, not bad round, but she was not in contention at this point. She was a little upset, and then when it skipped up and got you, she was frustrated that it got you.
Mm-hmm.
And she was,
as it should.
And as I'll say this, I guess I'm slightly biased. She was getting a 3 no matter what with that particular shot. She wasn't going to get down there. She wasn't going to get the birdie, but yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, I think. Real quick, honest question: if Johnny, what do they call him? Johnny Disc Golf, Johnny Football,
Johnny Football,
Central Coast.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
If he hadn't called you out on the commentary, will we be hearing this?
Yeah. You're the only one that told me that. I didn't know that. I had no idea, aside from you saying something to me that they had mentioned. And according to the board,
when did he call?
I was also called out or made mention of. Joe PG says in the Prodigy video they brought that up. I'm assuming they're talking about me.
Is that like?
Which I also
like some text. Do they have commentary?
No, they've had commentary. I believe. I believe Chris Dickerson was at least one of the names I'd heard has been doing some commentary. Honestly, I have no idea what was or was not said by either the Central Coast guys or by Prodigy. I haven't watched any of the footage. And no, I've got no problem taking.
I'm just teasing.
I'm just saying. That's why I am bringing it up though, because there's plenty of people that may not have heard about it. I have no problem admitting that I made a legitimate mistake.
I didn't even know you were called out on it.
Apparently.
Twice, apparently.
Hey, when you make a mistake, you better damn well believe when you're doing something for free for the disc golf community that when you make a mistake, they're going to let you know.
Oh, I can't wait to. They don't. Prodigy does not have the back 9 up yet.
Seriously?
They've got their front 9 up, but not the back 9 up.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Why in the F? I'll call. Why in the F is it not up?
Do we want to get in this real quick?
Well, it must be. If somebody said they called me out.
No, but Prodigy did the video, not Central Coast. So.
No, that's what I'm saying. Those here in the comments,
I know
it said that in the Prodigy video they brought that up.
It must have been the Prodigy front round then, the front 9, or
you just didn't find it. But either way,
I was on Prodigy's page. But no, so get that. So I'll say this: if he doesn't have the back 9 up, Marty's one guy with 2 cameras now. He's
his wife. Carmen is on the catch camera.
He's the only editor, as opposed to CCDG and Jomez, which both have multiple editors to get their crap out. I'm actually going to go to bat. No, I'm sorry, not crap was just the word I threw out there. They put out great stuff, all right, to put their stuff out there. Marty's one guy doing all the editing for 2 camera stuff. That takes a lot of time, as you know, with graphics. I'm going to go slightly to bat for Marty and say, I give him till, tomorrow. I mean,
it's effing Tuesday. The event ended Saturday.
He was behind already. He put round 3 out like yesterday. He, being one guy and not working him through the night probably, like some of those guys, he's going to fall behind. So I give him a little leeway because he's not meeting the expectations of Jomez and CCDG, who are putting out awesome stuff on time, in a particular time, because they have 2 editors. Or 3 possibly, depending on what they're doing. Like, he's one guy, and
he lives a few hours from there. I'm sorry.
5 hours from there. I talked to him about it. So I'm going to go. Okay. I'm slightly going to go to bat for him on that. And
normally I'm the first to defend editors that need some time for lots of different reasons. But it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday night.
I know.
All right.
Back
on
night.
track.
All right. Back to
I
results.
think that it's just one of those things. You feel bad about it, but it's part of the nature of if you're out there having these objects flying off trees and skipping, people are going to get hit unless you're the catch cam for Jomez. You're never going to get hit.
Yeah, it's going to happen someday.
They're going
to. I know. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen to everyone.
I remember playing Steelacoom. Ricky hit the camera guy there. It's whatever. But anyways. Where were we at?
Yeah, well, I was calling myself out for making a mistake. That's where we were at. So, you consumed the footage. Johnny nor I really did, obviously, because we were doing our own things, and there's only so many hours in a day. I don't want to say grade it because it's certainly not, it's not like it's a competition. But was all the footage, everyone, when it was out? Did you enjoy it? Did you consume it right away? Did you care about? Did you know scores going into it? Or did you care at all about? No, yeah, you were watching the live scoring, so you didn't care about anything in terms of spoilers or necessarily the timing of the footage. You just watched it when you could.
Yeah, basically, a few of the videos I waited. I was right when they released them. I watched them as soon as possible, and then today I caught one of the 9s that I hadn't watched, and I'll probably, tomorrow watch one of the other 9s. But for the most part, I've probably watched 80-85% of it, and I'd say the quality was pretty good. Commentary for Joe Mez all weekend was Steve Hill from Alta World and that big goon Jeremy Colleen, but pretty solid commentary. I thought things were pretty solid for doing the next day. Like they were cranking out those videos pretty quick, and I didn't sit down and grade them or anything, but they were enjoyable. We had Ian and Corey on for the Central Coast commentary. So no, I was a little surprised. I know Sexton just had the baby, but I assumed that he would have, if there was going to be a guest commentator, that he would have been in on some of the action. But, he's obviously got his hands full and probably wasn't interested in it.
Yeah, no, actually I talked to him. He was at the course on Friday when they were at Fort Gordon.
So that would have been Thursday.
I'm sorry, Thursday. Yeah, Thursday at Fort Gordon. I remember the second round. So. And I asked him, I was like, so you're going to be doing some commentary and this and that? And he was like, I'm up for it, but they weren't sure how they wanted to do it with Skype and this and that because he wasn't going to be able to be on site. And Jomez had Germ and Steve Hill. So I guess just Central Coast just did their own thing, so Nate wasn't involved. But I know he was interested in being involved. They just didn't come to that. And yet you mentioned it, so let's give a quick shout out. So congratulations to Nate Sexton. It's Coraline? Coraline.
I would say Coraline, right?
Coraline? Mm-hmm. Okay. Coraline Sexton. So congratulations. Born Saturday afternoon, during the finals at 5:23 or something. So it's a good thing he didn't go, and congratulations to him. It's a lot of fun, as all of us in this podcast know.
Yeah. Now, do you guys remember Charlotte Worlds? I believe who had to leave to go?
Steve Brinster.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve Brinster had to leave for the Twins. Correct. Did he leave on like a Friday even?
I think he missed the semifinal round.
Okay. Yeah.
If memory serves, because I was hyped up because I moved up a spot.
You would.
Like, darn.
Sounds like, yeah, you're the kind that would call rules on people and then never mind because they're beating you. So, Dana, I don't know if you caught it on one of our nights. One of the things we also did is we broke down a couple rules instances that had happened during the tournament.
We saw another one.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. And a gentleman that we saw, he came up to us the next day after we aired about the whole re-putting when you go out of bounds kind of thing and optional rethrow. He came up to us and he said, I've played that hole. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've rolled OB and had to go down into the ditch or so, I thought. And he said, now I know in the future that if I go out of bounds there and my putt is better from where I was, now I know. So he genuinely learned something new with that situation. So thanks again to Lance Brown for being our unpaid example there.
And we did. So Lance was not aware of the rule?
No, Lance himself was also aware of the rule, and he took advantage of it. So what we kind of did is I had recorded it, and we kind of broke it down during one of the nightly recaps and said, hey, if you miss this 10-footer and you roll 30 feet down a hill and roll OB, you can
Lance
play
is
it from
saying,
where you previously were.
No, drop it.
No, you dropped it in the OB area. So
I'll say this: when we were watching the FPO footage, or FPO footage, we were watching FPO live. The fourth round, Lisa Fakis, I believe it was on hole. It was after right after you got hit.
So 17.
No. Okay, I'm sorry. It was hole before that. It was 15, because it's the long one through the woods that kind of cuts up.
Yes, correct.
She had thrown a shot, ended up in the fairway. She put her foot directly behind the disc, right in line with the tee pad, basically. But the hole goes up and to the right. So she threw a forehand. It got about 60 feet and hit a tree. But before it even hit a tree, Katrina right away was like, foot fault. And Lisa was like, oh, okay. And they looked at where her foot divot was, and sure enough, she was not behind the disc in line with the basket. She had lined up with the tee pad. So Lisa then rethrows with a warning, puts her foot in the proper spot, clears all the trees, ends up way to the left.
And has ultimately a much better lie on that second, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was tough because she still had to pitch out, then she hit a really nice putt still for the what, 1, 2,
for the
3,
par.
for the 4. Yeah, for the 4 on that one. So, but it was all handled perfect. Lisa's like, yeah, my foot was right here, and sure enough, she looked like it. I suppose I think she didn't really think about it. She's put it behind based on where the tee pad is. So it's a good tip. Make sure it's in line with where the basket is, not necessarily where the direction you were throwing.
A lot of times it's going to help give you a better angle.
Yeah.
So obviously sometimes it's not, but knowing where you need to be lined up with, especially if the fairway is bending to the left and you can step out into the fairway versus being in line with it, definitely going to save you. I don't know what it's going to save you, but it's going to give you a little bit more room to work with.
Yep.
Well, some interesting rules, situations, and everything that we had seen was handled as well as it could have been. And the one other one that we talked about during the round was when there was an OB and ultimately a falling putt by Josh Childs when Nate Doss was on the card. He had called them, and they ultimately Josh reputted. He made the putt, and it resulted in a warning, and everything moved on just fine. But a couple of good situations that were discussed at length on one of our nightly recaps, and they might be worth busting out to have a separate video for people to reference in the future. But rules violations that were truly handled professionally and perfectly accurately.
Sounds like it. And I saw this question come up on the board. If you putt and your putt goes out of bounds 100 feet down, and so you want to re-putt, but you picked up your mini. Basically, the rule is you get an approximate lie from where you had, if you wanted to re-putt. So your group comes over, or you can just set your mini back down and say, hey, group, I picked my mini up. Is this where I was at? So it doesn't negate the rule if you pick up your mini.
Correct.
I know that's come up in the past at the Memorial and at some other events, and someone asked that on the board. So essentially, if I putted and it rolled out of bounds 100 feet away and I wanted to re-putt but picked my mini up, I can still put my mini down wherever it was.
Just get an approximation, as you said, from the group to put it back where it was. And Joe says it was a joke. Well, nonetheless, it's still worth clarifying for everyone out there.
It does. And it was funny thing is there was another, and Dana, maybe you can clarify this more. Apparently, Ricky had a blatant falling putt. He was like 12 feet from the basket, like stepped forward or something along those lines. Johnny McRae saw it, and Ricky was like, are you going to call me on it? And apparently Johnny's like, no, dude. Like,
really?
Like, don't bother, more or less, because you're the best putter in the world. You're going to hit that. In theory,
he certainly should have.
He should have. And someone had said that, in theory, now, Ricky could have turned around and called a courtesy violation on Johnny for not calling the fault. But go ahead, Dana.
Wow, that's bizarre.
Yeah,
in my regardless if it was a tap in or not, for him to see it and mention it, and Ricky.
Yeah, and the fact that Johnny was basically just like, no way, bro. Like, I'm not.
Was this way late in the weekend?
No, I think it was earlier in the weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
That is interesting. I hadn't heard that story.
So someone on the board can tell us around what round it was, but my understanding it was earlier in the weekend. It was maybe round 3, but 2 I thought. So,
Interesting. One of the jokes that I made, just because I like to be a jerk, Ricky got done, and like in yesteryear's fashion, as soon as he got done with the round, last year he opened up his cart and started throwing out a whole bunch of swag, some wristbands and hats and some other stuff, kind of as a celebratory thing. Well, this year, his good buddy Jared pulls open a box, and there's a bunch of discs in there. And Ricky takes the discs out, and he starts launching them into the crowd.
Now, he'd already putted out.
He'd already putted out, but he starts launching these discs into the crowd. I don't know if they're 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever the number was, but he's throwing them everywhere. And then at that point, I'm like, I think I said to you, Mel, to you, something like, stroke, like he's not done. And I was kidding around, but then he turns around. I remember vividly, he turns around and then starts adding up his scorecard. And I was just... It was just kind of funny how it all unfolded. And
technically, when does the
round end?
When you put out your final round?
When your scorecard's been submitted?
When it's been submitted, or when it's been signed, like added up? Or because in theory, he doesn't have to add up his scorecard. He'll get stroked for it, but he doesn't have to add it up. He could just be done. I mean, my personal thought is, you drop in that last putt, your round is done. But I could see.
Could he light up a cigarette as he drops in that last putt because the tournament's over and the major is over?
I would assume so.
Assuming smoking tobacco there is legal itself at the park.
I would think so, but I don't know. That's a great question.
We need some rules guys out on the board.
Very nitpicky and whatever, but it's things that people think about and see.
So that's what, and there's a lot of people coming in with various rules. Dana, were you privy to, speaking of following rules, shortly after the tournament, it makes me chuckle just thinking about it, Paige Pierce worked some agreement out, I don't know what, with Ricky, but Paige Pierce had Ricky's shoes.
Yep, I briefly talked to her about it.
And what was how did that unfold?
I just asked her, I said, did you steal his shoes? And she's like, no, he gave them to me. I don't want to talk too much about it. We'll have Paige on. We can ask her.
Okay.
That would be better.
Well, then let's fast forward though. Both Ricky's shoes were out there, and one of his putters were out there, and they both made it to Facebook relatively quickly. And Ricky had brought it to one of the very popular auction sites found on Facebook. Unfortunately, the way and the style in which he posted it didn't follow a whole bunch of the rules that are found on that site. There's very specific rules for each of these pages, and Ricky more or less disregarded like 3 or 4 of them by making his post the way he did. And then it kind of escalated. Dana, you probably saw even more of it than I did. What was your take?
Oh man, it was it was funny. So Ricky, I thought it was kind of kind of cool that he's auctioned off his winning putter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he very strict rules on the auction page, and he ended up changing rules. Then he was changing rules
to try and comply.
Weren't even rules, and
yep.
A lot of people were upset about it. The pros can come in and do whatever they want, blah blah blah. But I don't know. That it ended up getting deleted, which probably broke another rule. But the last I heard, it was, I don't know if he accepted the offer, but it was $500.
Correct. And I think I can follow that up by saying I believe it was a local here in Milwaukee.
Really?
That ultimately, I don't know how the transaction exactly went down, but ultimately it was a Milwaukee local that offered him, and then I think he even put in the posted a screenshot today showing that he had paid $500 to Ricky Wysocki and ultimately purchased the disc.
Are you able to say who it is?
I put it publicly. Moose, he goes by.
Oh.
Not the Moose you're thinking of. Not the '98 Am World Champion Moose. Another guy that goes by Moose. So a local guy to Milwaukee ended up spending $500 and has Ricky Wysocki's one of his putters from the Worlds. So pretty crazy.
That's awesome. Good.
Oh, another bonus for Rick.
Good for him. Like,
what do you guys? what do you guys think? I don't know. Let's speculate on his. Do you guys want to speculate on his latitude bonus? Do you think it was more or less than
150,000?
What's that?
150,000.
150?
I think you said more or less than 20,000. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna take the under on that one. I would guess personally, if I had a wild guess, I'd guess 10 to 15,000.
And that is nothing more than
just
pure
wild
speculation out of Johnny V.
Because I have no idea. Rick has not shared anything with us. I'm just taking a wild guess at some of the other things I've heard from other golfers on what bonuses might be for them. I'm going to guess 10 to 15 maybe. And usually the way these things work is they tend to ramp up as you win. If you win 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, you tend to get a bigger bonus. So if I had to take a wild guess, I'd guess 10 to 15, maybe 5 for the first one, 10 for the second, or 15 for the second. I don't know, but I think it's under 20 if I just had a gut instinct about it.
Yeah, my guess is probably it's going to turn out to be a lot more than this, but just flat out bonus, like cutting a check for winning Worlds. It had to be at least 20K is my guess. But
okay.
I don't know. I don't have any inside info, but it'll turn into a heck of a lot more, presumably. Whatever that number is that he did get, it's going to turn into a lot more for, with disc sales.
Exactly. And that's
all the other things that come along with it. So
he's going to get his dagger, as we're assuming, and and he's going to get a cut of those sales. Just as Paige will. Just as Paige is going to get a cut
of Ricky's sales?
A cut of Ricky's sales. It's really weird how...
Cut of the shoe sale?
That trilogy family.
It's very strange how their contracts work. No. As Paige will get a disc of her own, and I'm sure she got a bonus for winning, and as she should, and she'll get a cut of whatever 2-time disc she gets and puts out there, I don't know if she's getting another disc, but she was talking about I think it was the 2-time convict? Is that what she... I thought she was going to have another 2-time convict, so not another one. Her first 2-time convict.
Yeah.
4-time convict. 2 for Ricky. 4 for Paige.
I was starting to question some of your math.
The 4-time convict. I thought she was going to put out there. I'm sorry about that. Mixing up Ricky and Paige in my head here. So
well, we will certainly see as it unfolds. What Ricky, again, I tried to get it out of him, and that was part of the funny the funny banter between him and I as he was talking about a potential Signature Series disc. And Dana, that's exactly what you're alluding to for those that may not follow along intently. It's customary or commonplace that we've heard, as none of us have won Worlds, that there is typically a flat-out bonus check written for winning Worlds from a lot of the manufacturers. If you win Worlds, you get just a flat-out check for this. And then there's all the residual or secondary bonuses and or earning potential that can come after that, whether it's a custom disc or some other kind of merchandise endorsement or whatever. There's other things that come along with just the actual bonus check in itself. So, and those could prove to be large dollar figures. When you think of someone like I'll say a Paul Macbeth, and with the amount of destroyers that are sold every year.
Wow.
It's one thing to win Worlds. It's another thing to get that signature disc. And when that signature disc equates to large volumes of sales, sometimes those can pay pretty ridiculous dividends.
It's kind of funny, and Vincent brings it up. He says, I wish the players' contracts were public like in other major sports. Yes and no. I think I would like to see them public for the sake of the players, because if, let's just say, you have 2 members of some disc manufacturer's top tier, neither have won a world championship.
So both on the Trilogy Super Champion
Champion team
of exclusive world champions. Okay,
correct. And neither have won. One wins Worlds, gets 5,000. One wins World and gets 10,000. Is that fair for the players? Part of having these public contracts for other major league players, the agents make sure they're out there so that they're constantly escalating. So it's pushing the boundaries. So if you're the best first baseman in baseball, you're getting X amount because so and so just signed and he's not the best, he's the third best, he signed for 20 million, you're going to get 23 million. Kind of like that. I'd love to see these things a little bit more public, but ultimately they're not publicly held companies. That's really truly none of our business. It would just be nice on a media perspective to know that stuff.
Dana,
tell us your contract. I mean, what do you think?
I checked out.
Basically, do you feel like is it just us being nosy, all of us within disc golf, whether it's our chatters or with us in media or as friends or whatever? Is it us just being nosy, or do you feel like there's any form of obligation to contract details being known?
No, I don't think so. Not at this time, anyways. Maybe further down the line, but at this time, I don't think it'd be fun. I guess it'd be kind of fun to know, but I would prefer personally not knowing, not having people. It's my personally, it's my business with my contract, and it's not do I want it can just open. There's so many different things. Like, it's not just plain disc golf, so it's promoting disc golf and doing other things, and how that all breaks down for each individual person can be different, and I think it's probably best at this point in time to be left private.
Which is funny, because I've listened one time in one of our travels earlier in the year, I listened to a very interesting podcast that talked generically about how everyone in every company should know what other people are making, which obviously is a big taboo by today's, I don't want to say standards, by today's culture. However, they had this really interesting point of view about, and it may bring to light some of the things you're talking about, Dana, but in discussing how if everyone knew everyone else's contract and what that really meant and how it could change up certain dynamics, not just from a negotiating perspective, but from a commitment and a longevity perspective, and just there's a lot of things that factored into it. It was an interesting counterpoint, because as we all know right now, one of the things that you just really aren't supposed to talk about is a salary, and some may say the same of sponsorships. And
I'll say two things. One, like someone said on the board, these aren't teams, they're sponsors. So it's not like there's a salary cap where you need to know what the players are making, that they're public. So it's not like Trilogy only has $1 million to spend and they're going to put $750,000 towards Paige and $250,000 towards Melton. It's who cares? They're sponsorships. Not everyone knows LeBron's Nike sponsorship deal in exact details. The other thing is, these are, we're such a small sport, but it would help in negotiating some and setting prices for these players. And I think the players, I think they know. I think a lot of them talk amongst themselves, and they probably have a general idea of what the other people, if not exactly, at least a good barometer of what the other people are doing in other places. So that's just
I agree with that. They certainly, a lot of them do. There, to some degree, there's a generic contract. I know, at least when I was with Team Discraft for a while, there was a generic contract that everybody saw, and there were different levels on there, so you had some idea of what other people at other levels were doing. Same thing when I was with Innova. There was different, levels that you knew of. The question is, are there other things above and beyond that may not be listed on that contract? And there again, that comes down to a one-on-one, individual, personal relationship that between the sponsor and the player that we just may never be privy to.
Yeah, and I think, as you guys said, a lot of the guys are a lot of the players are friends and know, have an idea, or at least know, or maybe know what they're making, and especially like you see that come into play when the off season rolls along. Hey, Dave Doss, how's Discraft treat you? Hey, Will, what's Prodigy like? What kind of bonus structure? And then that's when someone trying to go from one team to another might learn a lot about who's getting paid what and what where they fall into the scheme of things. But yeah.
Well,
end of story. Private for now.
Exactly.
I think I'm good with that.
Yep. I've got no real complaints about it either. So.
It'd be interesting though, as the if that would help and in this case possibly hurt or challenge the manufacturers more, is if it was a little bit more public and or a little bit more openly discussed, would some of these players have that much more leverage for their next guy, and maybe the manufacturers just don't want to see that happening. Of course, they would hate for that.
It could, because if people found out Discraft was heads and shoulders above every other manufacturer as far as their bonus structure and whatnot, that could push people over there. Honestly, or Trilogy, or Legacy, or Prodigy, or anybody above and beyond. It would give players probably more leverage. But like I said, I think they're all relatively close. I think these players know each other and whatnot, and I don't think it's a big secret. And a lot of them have bounced around amongst different manufacturers, so I think they kind of have a general idea.
Well, and I'm going to follow that one point up before we can put sponsorship to bed. It's I would bet every disc I own, all thousands of them, that Paige Pierce is not moving anywhere from Dynamic. I don't know how many years I can put that on for. I would say at least a few years minimum, if not maybe forever. Ricky Wysocki has performed well with every manufacturer he's thrown for because he's good. Is there a price on Ricky Wysocki? He's talked about how comfortable, and let me be very clear, he has openly discussed how comfortable he is, how much he loves their product, how well he throws it, how he's won, how he's, again, comfortable with the product, and they make great product. Latitude 64 makes great product for him to throw. The question is there a dollar figure that could come from somewhere that would be enticing to him?
Dana, do you have a thought before I talk?
Yeah, there is. I mean, as Terry said, he's been with a number of companies. So for one, that says he's not, against going to a better deal. And he's won. He's had success with all these companies, and obviously he's, hitting his stride now with Latitude. But if, let's say, Innova called Ricky up in the office, I don't know when Ricky's contract is up, and said, hey, we're going to give you a huge signing bonus, and then Tour Series this, that, and the other, and if you have this type of year, you're going to win this kind of money. Rick's going to, and if Latitude can't match it, why not, or beat it? Why, since he's already, moved around, you would assume that he would go with that better offer, right?
He would. I think he'd listen to any offer, and I want to be very clear. I am not insinuating that Ricky has in fact said anything of this nature,
no.
and just that he has said how much he loves the product and how successful he's been with them. I want to be very clear on that. I'm just talking for the sake of speculation. Because he's in the driver's seat right now with 2 world titles and seemingly no end in sight.
A good head start on a third, knowing the courses.
Yeah, so that's why I ask. And you put it perfectly, Dana. He has played for 2 other manufacturers right now, and he's, Ricky definitely thinks about numbers and dollars and cents, as he should be.
I think there's really only, I'll say 2 places that he could even really go to anymore.
Okay.
Like, there's the Innova family, which I'll throw Discmania under the Innova umbrella.
Okay.
But he was an Innova player a long time ago.
He certainly was.
And he left for Prodigy, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was any real bad blood there, but I don't know for a fact. So he could possibly go back there if the price were right. And Discraft. I think really that's it. And if Discraft made him a huge offer and said, "Hey, we're going to use this," good for them. But I don't think he's moving. But he's not going to Legacy. I don't think they can. They're not big enough yet. He's another Trilogy company isn't going to try to steal him away because that's all inside the family. He's not going back to Prodigy. I don't think that's really in the sights. He left for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Who does that really leave, other than Innova / Disc
Salient?
Poor Dana. So I'll say this. I think really Discraft and Innova would have to show him some pretty big Paul dollars in order for him to move, or Discraft would have to do the same thing. But
Luke on the board says Pro Discus, MVP, Gateway.
No, Gateway's not doing that. Pro Discus probably not. MVP maybe. They're kind of starting to come up. They don't really have any big name players. So am I wrong there?
Keep going.
I could see them trying to make a splash and get Ricky. But I don't think they're going to personally. I think Ricky's staying put. But you're right. I did forget about MVP personally.
If Ricky went MVP sales would
triple. Yeah.
It would be worth it. I don't know what the number would be worth, but for them to make a large that would, within the sport of disc golf, that would grow their brand tremendously.
Oh, for sure. I think
no doubt about it.
It's definitely an interesting thought experiment. I think he's staying put.
I
think he's fine and he's happy where he's at. I would love to know what number it would take. He would never say it in public, but privately, what that number would be. If I said, all right, here's the blank check, what's the minimum you will take to leave? What that number is.
Well, and like I said, I wouldn't even consider the conversation with Paige, with her recent transition, and
she's so happy.
And exactly, there's so many more things, and I'm not saying Ricky's not happy. It's just an interesting conversation piece.
It's just the two of them are different in that Paige considers Dynamic Disc family. She said it multiple times. They are her support. They are her family now. I don't necessarily think Ricky has ever said or considered, and I don't know, Latitude family like that. I think he loves the discs. He likes the support he gets from them. He likes having the whole trilogy lineup, as he said, and he feels really comfortable in what he's doing, clearly. But I don't think there's that connective tissue that Paige has with EMAC and all that other stuff. So,
well, as and we finish it with something that maybe we all know. That was set out there. Brent Harrelson says it best. Everybody has a price.
I have a price.
I have a price too.
Mine's real
It
low.
would not take much to get rid of this guy. Speaking of which, in quick unrelated news to disc golf, one of our Smashies had reached out today, and he came to me for some technical advice about live streaming. I told him some basics, and then I said, if it gets hairy, call Johnny. So you might get that phone call sooner than later. Just thought I'd let you know, trying to help you out.
Who goes to you for tech advice?
Why wouldn't you? Just saying. I gave him the basics. He needed the basics. I got it under control.
All right, Dana, what else do you got? I mean, we got Ricky in the win. We got Paul in second. Simon in third. Simon obviously was a little injured. He was talking about it as we were leaving the IDGC on Sunday. He had some cortisone shots, I believe, and his back is not doing as well as he would like. So hopefully he heals up with that.
He's really had a tremendous year. He had that first event where he got his feet wet at Gentlemen's Club, and then he went 2-3-1, 2-2-2, 3-4, and then third at Worlds. Like, that's pretty tremendous shooting. It's especially coming off the injury, and all those, aside from maybe one event, were large scale events: Disc Golf Pro Tours, NTs, World Tour. He's having a heck of a year. Let's hope it's just a little outlier, something that isn't going to hinder him anymore. But he's having a heck of a year. And it's great to see, because that was a question, coming off the injury. What is Simon going to look like? Is he still going to be Simon? And that's another thing I kind of wanted to talk about too. Is Simon at Worlds, like 01 at the Fort.
He took the crazy route, the one that one that nobody else took. Did you see it?
Nope.
See any?
There's not a route there. There's a tight. It's not. Instead of going down the two gaps, he turns and looks up to the left through this tiny hole and mashes a huge anhyzer. And it's like, okay, that's just Simon being Simon, and then later in the round, he throws a Scamo Hawk.
Yep.
Which is you take an understable disc and you throw it on a huge turnover line, like a roller line. and you throw it really hard, so hard that it flips and flies like a tomahawk. I believe Felberg has made that phrase popular, but just so fun to watch, exciting. Like what is he going to do next? And again, I hope the back is all right, because he is so much fun to watch, and he is having a great year.
The hole that Kevin McCoy aced, did we say that was
14? I want to say.
The one that goes down the hill to the left. We were standing on the tee that was weird. There was a big backup, and I was talking with Andy from Final Round Radio, who's taking photos, and I'm jokingly saying, hey, this is the route I take. I take this big Anheuser, ha ha ha. Simon steps up and looks, and he's like, I could do that. And I thought for a second, like, maybe he would, because he ended up hitting some trees and kicking into the woods anyway. And I thought, you could do that. You could take a big Annie straight up, have it kind of pan out, and end up in a relatively, possibly decent position on that particular hole. But I don't think he practiced it, and he didn't want to do that. But he was up there looking at it, and I said it as a joke. But Simon has routes that nobody else can look at. It's amazing.
Well, I had made the comment at some point during the week that it's funny when a lot of people complain about the Heiser Fest. There's not enough trees at Fiesta Lakes or at the Memorial in general, and not enough trees. I'm sick of seeing golf courses and wide open areas where these guys are throwing. But then you come out to a place like Fort Gordon, and the first thing some players do if they have the power is look for the route that takes away most of the trees. Mm-hmm. And I find that funny. I think of that on what ended up being hole number 10. I would be willing to bet you money that when that course was designed, I believe his name was Jason wasn't thinking, oh yeah, players are going to stand here and they're going to launch it that direction to try and attack this pin. It's a relatively narrow fairway that plays down and then finishes a little bit to the right on hole number 10. It's the closest one to the Holiday Inn Express. That's right there. And I'm just guessing the course designer himself didn't think, oh yeah, somebody's going to throw it over there. And that became actually one of the very popular routes on that particular hole. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that got me thinking about how often our players look for the big Heiser, whether there's trees there or not. They want to take them out of play. And, and the course may or may not be able to contain them is really what I'm saying.
With that said, I think that I heard few complaints out there. Was this the first event at this course?
That was one thing that was discussed. Yeah.
So, you generally world's courses and most big events, the courses are tested. They have events leading up to it, and hopefully events with some pro caliber players to kind of iron out some of those things that you have to think about. Maybe adding OB here or this there, or changing it, just making changes because a hole might play too long or too whatever. But there was no testing of this Fort course. Terry, do you think if this was year 2 of the course and they had an NT last year that there would be some changes on this course?
There might be a few tweaks here and there. I know when I was covering the second round, Barry Schultz had kind of said he didn't understand, that there hadn't been any rounds out here and I think he even said to iron out a few of the kinks, backups, and things. Well, I think we all know, no matter how a course is designed, there can be backups on a hole just by the nature of our players. When you have people like Simon who could potentially drive a green on a par 4, where the 98% of the other people aren't even thinking about it. So I don't know that you could always negate things like backups, but
sure,
there is something to be said. However, I also feel like there's been quite a legitimate vetting process that's getting more and more strict year after year. People like knowledgeable people like Sean Sinclair and other course designers that are involved with high-level tournaments frequently visit these courses, and they look for things, and they say, hey, this OB over here really needs to be more defined, or let's move the pin 80 feet this direction, or whatever. And is it ever going to be perfect? Probably not. Yeah. But there are people that have they usually go to courses months in advance now, for our world championships at least, to say, oh, you have an A and a B pin here? Oh, yeah, we definitely need this played in the B pin, and here's why. So I think a lot of those things that had happened, I know they had, because I know Sean was there and I know others were there. Could every course, well, not every, could some courses like Fort Gordon on the back have a little bit more, be worn in a little bit more? Sure. I think that's fair to say. I mean, the course is relatively fresh, but
I know.
I don't know how much it really hurt the fact that there wasn't prior events being held there, unless somebody's got some really deep down insightful reason that I don't know as a player or TD. I don't know that there was any major issue or detriment out there whatsoever. My own personal opinion would be, I feel like a few dozen trees could be removed on hole number 15, and that was apparently a very vivid debate that took place months leading into the event, and it didn't look like any were removed from the month before when I was there. That would be my only personal recommendation, is that there for sure could be less trees on the second half of hole 15 out at Fort Gordon.
And Scott brings up the perfect point that I was waiting to say. That course, the only reason I would say it's not a World's course is that there's nowhere for the gallery to go on that back nine. So you've got people bunched up behind the players or down separate walkways that can't even see the fairway when the players are throwing. It's just not realistic. If we had more spectators, that course is not capable of holding them. And I think that is the one downside of that course, other than hole 15, that we see, is that back nine is just not capable of holding spectators. I know Paige said she didn't like the course at all, but I don't know. Even if you look at Jackson, that's a tough spot for spectators in some places too. So, but Fort Gordon really was rough. As much as I thought it was a good course, it was rough for spectators to stand on.
Well, and that kind of goes to my point earlier when we talk about courses and the style that they are, slightly more open and less wooded, lend to live on-site viewers and spectators far better than these super tight corridors. We'll go to a Maple Hill, and you're going to see on hole 7 or hole 9, it's really hard to spectate those holes, although those might be some of the best holes on the course. Those holes are also really hard to spectate. So all we can do is keep fighting through it. There's no perfect solution for that stuff. Dana, what was your take from afar of the courses?
Yeah, what did you think about them, having never played them and only seeing them without even drone coverage, because that wasn't allowed, seeing them in post-production? What did you think of them?
Well, I've played Jackson. I was at the opening of the IDGC back in 06, 07. But there have been a few. They made a few tweaks for Worlds, so I wasn't unfamiliar with that course. And I'd heard great things about the Fort course, and I thought it looked like it played pretty well. And aside from maybe a couple trees on, what hole did you mention, Johnny?
15.
Yeah, that one jumped out as maybe needing to be cleaned up a little bit more. But for the most part, and especially being a new course, I was really impressed, and it did look brutal though. Three holes over 1,000 with the heat and the elevation. It seemed to really test players, and I was I would have liked to play Worlds, but I was almost glad I didn't. I was like, that seems pretty miserable with gnats in your face the whole time, and extraordinary heat, and just a really mentally challenging, physically challenging course.
Well, Terry and I said the same thing, and Terry brought it up thinking like, we've played so many Worlds that going to them and not playing is kind of weird, but then getting to these courses and watching these pros play, hi Ashley, watching these pros play, looking at these fairways. When I went to Jackson, I felt small. That course is huge. The fairways are big, the trees are large. That course makes you feel small, and just thinking like, oh my God, I can't throw this far. I'm watching these young guns crush discs, and my measly 325-foot throws are not going to cut it. And then same thing at Fort Gordon. Like these are long courses. Although I do think the back nine, anyone could have really thrown the back nine. It's not that bad. You just have to really hit a line, and a lot of those are downhill. But it's a course like that I think I'm glad I'm not really playing Worlds anymore. I'm glad I'm not wasting my money and that I'm here doing coverage, because it's sickening watching some of these guys throw on some of these huge courses. And
yeah, and the thing about the Jackson course, it's not your typical wooded course, because it has these big booming fairways that you can really unleash a distance drive. It's not uncommon to throw a distance driver on some of those tee shots, where traditionally when you're playing a wooded course, maybe in your hometown or in your home state, you're going to have to slow things down with fairways and mid-ranges and putters and stuff. But this is just a epic, huge wooded course with these great fairways that you can open up on, and it's really fun to play as it's kind of a different mix of wooded golf. But it does have those tight spots where obviously, the mid-range and fairway putter shot is better. But Houck definitely did it right on the Jackson course, and I can remember that watching the NT in '07 Hall of Fame Classic and seeing these pro players throw these big moving drives through the woods, and I'm like, this is epic. I would never dream of doing this at my hometown wooded course. So
yeah, and I think the overall consensus, and you said Paige may or may not have liked Fort Gordon, but the overall consensus would be those courses between the physical and the mental challenged our players plenty.
Yeah, the challenge.
No one walked off and was like, meh.
Yeah, there was definitely, the challenge was there, just whether or not you felt that the quality of Fort Gordon was there or not. But it was challenging for sure.
And with those rounds being 4+ hours or right around that 4-hour mark, along with the heat, along with the humidity and everything else, yeah, some people saying, well, there should be more golf. Well, there realistically wasn't to be more golf in a single day when you were out. I mean, if you're talking about one of the most long and grueling, and yeah, I couldn't even fathom. Okay, hey, you're done with 18 holes. You got a 1-hour lunch break. You're going back out for another one. Like, even some of our top players, I think, would have been like jello out there. And then you're just talking about, overall safety and everything else. But yeah, certainly and I have to again give the accolades. The World's crew and staff, Zach Schaefer, along with Michael Downs, the assistant TD, and then really the dozens and dozens of people that assisted them in putting on this. The entire PDGA staff that was there, which was, I think, every single person. And then all of the volunteers and the volunteer coordinator and Tom and Dalton, who helped us out a few of the evenings with some of the media stuff and helped at the PDGA. It was an amazing effort. And I know we've talked about this in the past, but when you have Worlds at the two courses with just those two divisions, you also make it that much more practical for more solid clubs and organizations to put on a really good Worlds. And Dana, you and I think of places, we all can think of places that realistically have just the 2 or 3 courses that are truly world championship caliber, and it just opens up so many more opportunities. And having the sizable field that didn't feel as large because it wasn't the 4, the 5, the 600 with all of the divisions, but still 2 huge fields. I think that was the largest female field we've ever had at a Worlds. If it wasn't, it was close to. I think it was, though, the largest female field at Worlds. That says something, and it allows for our 2 premier divisions to be highlighted and then solely focused on. And hats off to the PDGA. Great job. They also significantly beefed up the payout in that Ricky Wysocki took home $12,000. That's the largest World's first place check we've ever seen. Paul McBeth taking home $6,000, for second,
which I had said ties his highest World's win.
Exactly.
2 or 3 years ago, he had 6,000. He got that for second place. So I hope this trend continues. I don't know if it's a matter of all that added cash only splitting between 2 divisions as opposed to going to a couple other divisions, or if it was just the PDGA just pumped up because of the event and where it was at.
Yeah, and then less focus on maybe, like you said, because of less divisions and then stretching themselves a little less thin. there was a little bit more resources in the coffer, so to speak. So next year, we're heading out to Vermont, as we said. We'll have plenty of preview into that as we move into next year, but we're certainly looking forward to that as well. And they're going to have to follow up a really solid event in this year's World. So excited to do it, and good luck to you. I believe Chris is out there, and also Jeff Spring. So looking forward to it.
Very much.
Dana, what's your next event?
Illinois State Championships here in the Joliet area this weekend, playing Highland Park and Delwood. So the two best courses in the area. Jesse Sands is running the event. He runs the local doubles league here, and he's a heck of a guy, and he's been out working on the courses nonstop for a long time. He actually was out Father's Day morning. He got a new weed whacker, and so he had to take it out to the course. But yeah, that's my next event, and then I'll be at the rest of the Pro Tour events, and yeah, I'm not sure what else I've got in there. I might try to sneak in an iOS at Round Lake, but for the most part, I'm hanging around here and then hitting a couple of Pro Tour events. But boys, where's Paige at? It's 10:45.
Yeah,
we messaged her. Yeah, we messaged her, and she went out to dinner and then to get a drink, and she told us she would get to us as soon as she could. But we're still.
We may or may not. We may or may not see or hear from her for sure. I know she said she's trying her best, so we'll see if it can happen. It may or may not. Understandably, as she's out on the tour, traveling and soaking in a world's victory. Yes, she has a contractual obligation to be here
on SmashBox. Yep.
Yes, which I just made up, but we may or may not hear from her tonight. I'm hoping and thinking we will, but yeah, I'm sorry if everyone's still waited with bated breath, expecting her any second. We did get to meet Ronald Harkey, one of our favorite Smashes.
I did not get to meet Ronald.
I thought I pointed him out to you. He was. Oh, maybe you weren't standing
No, I don't
next to
believe
me.
I was saying. I met Dad. Dad's drunk. So
Dad's
thanks a lot,
drunk.
Dad.
We met him,
But I do not believe I got a chance to meet Ronald. Sorry, Ronald. Terry and I split up a lot this week, and if you saw him and didn't see me and this and that, I would love to give you a high five. But
so thank you. Lots of love and support that we received over in Augusta. So thank you to everyone that was there. Real quickly, Dana, you kind of touched on it. What people are asking about is when we're going to see some live, when we're going to see more coverage, more footage coming out. Well, next live event as of right now is slated for the Ledgestone Insurance Open, which will be taking place in the early part of August. That will be live. Will be at Eureka, in Lake Eureka Park in Eureka. We'll be there for all of the rounds taking place over at the Ledgestone. So that will be our next live event. That's for sure on the books in terms of also being at the Disc Golf Pro Tour there. And then the rest of the Disc Golf Pro Tour events from there on out. There's that one, and then 4 additional ones, which of course include Vibram and Idlewild and the finale and the Green Mountain Championships. So
do we know much about the signal at Idlewild?
no.
We were told that it was tested and that it seemed to be good. So
We've heard that. Nothing against Idlewild guys, but we've heard that story before. It's not always true. So when are you taking a trip down there?
We'll have to see when we can get if there's going to be a physical on-site test or not. But
Yeah.
we're hoping that everything will be good. I am excited to say I'm heading. I had to graciously decline an offer to return to Alaska this year over this upcoming weekend, and instead I'm going to be visiting Josh Barnhill and the rest of the crew over at the Red, White, and Boom this weekend. So super excited to get over there. I know they did really big things with the event last year, and I know that Josh is trying to grow that event to make it as big as he possibly can. I think, like anyone that has big event goals in mind, I think he kind of points and looks at the glass blown and is like, oh, I like that, and is going to do what he can. I think he has over 200 people registered in the amateur divisions, And the focus isn't just on how much golf are you going to play. I believe it's just one round a day over the 2 days, but there's clinics and demonstrations. There's a players party, I think, Friday night with all sorts of things. I think there's another one on Saturday night. I believe it's spilling over to Sunday and Monday with some additional action. So super excited. If you're going to be there, let me know. Post it on the board. I'd love to talk to as many people as possible. And I believe Jomez is going to be there doing post-production, regular, daily, next day, all day post-production action. And then I think each night my plan is to be on site wherever the hot spot is to give you some kind of a daily recap as well. So think of what you saw at Glass Blown Open or even a little bit of what you saw at Worlds this last week. I'll be there on site and each night taking in some of the live action. Maybe I'll let other people run the show like Philo and.
I was to say, well, now that you're a live expert, apparently to our people, you don't need my help.
No, I got it. So anyway, I wanted to say I'm excited. Looking forward to traveling down to the Dayton area. I think Beaverton is where he told me to lock it in, but an area I've never been to, and super excited to take it in. So get ready for that. I know it's coming up in a couple days.
Red, white, and boom.
Red, white, and boom taking place this weekend.
Well, I know you guys are waiting for Paige, but I gotta
call it, Dana. It's fine.
Dana,
we've got some other things we can talk about. So why don't you tap out, Dana? We will
talk about me.
Yes,
we're gonna wait till you're gone, but yeah.
Okay. Well,
your beard's looking good. You look good.
Thank you. I've been keeping it trimmed up, and I got a haircut the other day, so that's probably the nicest thing you've said to me in quite some time. Thank you.
Well, just wait till you get off the air then.
Yeah. Well,
all right, Dana.
So I will never know unless
no.
tells me.
We will cut you loose. We appreciate you putting in the overtime here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for giving us your insights. I was saying to Johnny, it's going to be exciting to hear how you viewed Worlds, with us being there and you taking it in at home but following along so intently. I was genuinely interested to hear what it was like from your side of the country. So thanks for the insights, and look forward to hopefully seeing you sometime soon.
All right, sounds good. Everybody have a nice evening.
All right. Cheers. Good night, Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
All right. Again, Dana Vici. I guess that's something worth bringing up right now. I just thought of it. Is next Tuesday is July 4th.
It is, and I don't know if we're going to have a podcast on the 4th of July or not. Because
a good question.
I guess we're going to find out on what our schedule looks like. We might have to push it to Wednesday or...
Yeah, that is a good question. Maybe things get moved into Wednesday next week. We'll see. I think that would be the most logical thing to do. I know come Thursday night, my daughter and I are flying to the Rocky Mountain Women's Championships. I'm super excited about that, as is my daughter. In fact, my friends over at Southwest just lowered some fares, so I got a little bit of a rebate on that, and super looking forward to going to that the week after. So yeah, maybe next Wednesday would be more logical. So push all your calendars back 24 hours, people.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that we have our regular Smashy, and Disc Golf Nerd provides us with his reviews of discs, and he thought it would be very appropriate this week if he gave us a review of the Ricky Wysocki Saki Bomb Compass. So in honor of, it's not necessarily the newest disc on the market, but in honor of Rick's championship, we have this little review for you. So take a sit back, take a seat, relax, all that other stuff, and I'm going to get to this here for you.
What's up, Smashies? This month I thought it would be only fitting to honor the reigning, defending, two-time Disc Golf World Champion Ricky Wysocki by doing a quick Smashbox review on the Latitude 64 Opto Compass. The Saki Bomb Compass is Ricky's signature disc. It is one of my personal favorite mid-ranges, and I believe it is a disc that can be well used by almost all skill levels and arm speeds out there on the course. Taking a look at the rim design, you can see it's a relatively unique rim shape, but it provides a comfortable feel in the hand. The Opto versions have a little bit of a rounded top to them, but not really so much of a dome, while the Goldline versions have a much flatter top in general and seem to have a little bit more stability as well. I wanted to show you guys all the different ones that I have in my collection, as it's a great collector disc as well. And I find that the Opto Sparkle is one of my favorites, having a little bit of extra stability and a really nice, beautiful look to them. One of the reasons why I love the compass so much and why it remains a staple in my bag is its versatility. It holds release angles extremely well, allowing you to work many different angles and shot shapes down the fairway. It's also a great learning tool for newer players based on that, because you will see the release angle that you have on your shot based on the flight of the disc. It's very neutral, it will hold a hyzer, fly very straight and flat, and it will also hold a nice smooth turnover as well. Another nice attribute of the compass is its glide. It carries nicely down the fairway, getting you some extra distance and allowing you to just throw a nice smooth shot and let the disc do the work. So it's just a really versatile mid-range that you can put one of in your bag and cover yourself on a lot of different shots. So congratulations to Ricky. I am a big fan and very happy to see him play so well out there in Augusta. That's my review for this month. I will check you guys later. That's it for my segment this month. Big thank you to Smashbox for having me be a part of the show. If you'd like to see the full review of this disc, as well as over 130 others, plus beginner tips and information, the Plastic Podcast, and lots of other disc golf related content, just search for Disc Golf Nerd on YouTube or Google. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks again to the Disc Golf Nerd for providing us his quick reviews. You can find him, as he mentions, at his YouTube channel, the Disc Golf Nerd YouTube channel. Please go ahead and get out there. He gave away I believe one of those compasses. I don't know if it's one of those particularly, but he gave away a compass when Ricky won Worlds, and when Ricky was on our podcast on Saturday night. Unfortunately, Ricky kind of dug himself into a little hole talking about how he wanted to give away the disc. He asked our crowd, what do you think I need to work on? And I swear to God, he was going to talk about his game as far as public speaking goes. And the board lit up. So
he really opened himself up for that one.
He did, which I'll say this. A lot of people, when I pointed that interview out, a lot of people are like, I really enjoy Rick more because of that interview, because he opened up more. He talked a little bit more freely about himself. He wasn't as robotic as sometimes he can come across. So, again, if you're a fan of Ricky, if you're not a fan of Ricky, go watch that interview, and I guarantee you it's hard not to be a fan when you're done listening to it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun as he moved into 209, where we were at the Home 2 Suites in Grovetown. Him and his family were staying just a few doors down from us, and it worked out really well for him to kind of surprise all of the recap players. We really knew that we had a pretty good idea he was going to be joining us, but we kind of teased it out throughout the night that we were going to have a special guest, and really no one knew for sure who it was going to be. And then having Ricky come join us worked out really well. So,
Chris Young, you can look at our recap. It's in the podcast audio form, or you can go to the YouTube, and it's about an hour and a half before the show ends. Just scrub through the YouTube video if you don't care about the world's recap portion, and go ahead and check that out after this is all done. Or subscribe to our podcast.
Yeah,
and
come
you'll
on,
get it, because it went out to all of our audio podcast subscribers too.
Get it. And speaking of the YouTubes, I would like to go ahead and say tomorrow you are going to see at least the front, if not its entirety, the final round of the mixed doubles that took place on Sunday. This year it was moved from the beginning of the event, where it typically takes place on the Saturday leading into Worlds. This year it was moved from that weekend to Sunday, the day after Worlds singles competition had concluded. And so if you're interested in that, that will be tomorrow. Johnny V and I went out there Sunday mid-afternoon or mid-morning into their afternoon round, and I had followed the leader card, which consisted of Greg Barsby and his partner Rebecca Cox, along with Valerie Jenkins and Nate Doss. So I followed them throughout the lead card. I got all of their shots, shot-by-shot action, a little bit of extra side conversation. There's a few humorous spots in there as well. I've got that all edited together. In fact, it's technically already on YouTube, the front nine. I have to create a cute little thumbnail for it. And then the back nine is almost completely edited as well, and so I'll be getting that out. I may just release them both ultimately tomorrow. I have to thank Discraft, who said that they were interested in supporting that effort of that recording and whatnot. So thank you to Discraft. I really appreciate you guys supporting the video blog coverage for that. And
I followed the second card.
The chase card.
Because the scores were really tight. Everyone was within about 2 to 3 strokes.
Yes, a very competitive first round.
And rather than have 2 camera coverage on one card, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go follow the second card. So I walked down hole 1's fairway and walked over to hole 2, not realizing that they started on hole 3. They put a spacer in there. So actually I missed the first hole. But I have from 2 until hole 1. I'm sorry, their second hole until hole 1. So it would be hole 4 through hole 1. But and that was Germ and Paige, which is why I wanted to follow it. But I also had Paul and Kat. So it's really a star-studded thing, and that is going to be exclusive to our Patreon supporters.
What?
So I'm going to edit that together once I get the footage from Terry. He's going to do his editing first, then I'll take mine. And I'm going to put that out as an exclusive to only our Patreon supporters. I promised them some exclusive stuff for Worlds, and that's what they're going to get. So you're going to be able to watch that. There's some really fun stuff in there and some really funny shots. So please go ahead. If you would like access to that, you can support us at patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. And I hope to have that up within a week or so.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys know as I was quickly scrubbing through and taking a look. I didn't realize how good I look on camera there. But, no,
you almost look like you're the thinking man, but I know you don't think too much.
At approximately, and I'll put a link out there somewhere, but approximately the 1 hour and we'll call it the 1 hour and 23 minute mark of our day 4 recap is where you'll find the Ricky Wysocki interview begins. I'm not sure how long it goes. It goes quite some time. But one of the very first comments on there, funny enough, as I read, says, "I love Rick after this. He seems like an amazing champion. He's absurdly friendly person. Dry as chalk," some person wrote on CCDG. "Rick was extremely entertaining during this." So we'll make that final plug. Again, the 1 hour and 23 minute mark is where you can find it.
And I want to clear something up because Greg brought this up on the board. He asked if the PDGA knew I was going to make it exclusive to Patreon. It doesn't matter to the PDGA because technically our duties were done after Worlds ended, after the singles competition ended. We were not under any obligation of any sort to cover doubles. We chose to spend our Sunday rather than. I debated whether I wanted to cover that second card or whether I was going to maybe ask Jomez if I could join them for their round. They went out and played one of the courses at the IDGC, and I thought about asking, like, hey, can I just join and play? I haven't played in a couple months. But instead I thought, you know what? No, I promised our Smashies something. So I went out and covered that second card, hoping that maybe we'd get the winner, because Germ and Paige had been the winner for 2 solid years. So I was hoping I'd get a sneaky second card victory out of them. And you'll have to find out if that happened or not. Or you could look at the results. But that's why I did that. So ultimately, PDGA, while we thank them for all the support they gave us during the week, our jobs were done.
That was all on our own.
That was all on our own. So
yeah, completely on our own. And I know there was a Reddit comment or a question out there as to what our obligations were or weren't for the week. And our obligations, as we were worked with the PDGA, was to provide an after show. Yep. So any of the content and the coverage that we ultimately assembled was really kind of all additional pieces that we had put together.
Yeah, because ultimately our goal was to provide you guys with as good of a coverage as the two of us could provide without having any extra editors. And then thankfully Dalton stepped up and helped us out with some stuff. So, and we really did want a few more interviews. I felt that our day 4 interview was pretty darn good with the champ, Ricky. And then our second day interview, even though it was a little loud at that bar, we had like 3 or 4 interviews come in and out of there. Day 1 and 3 were at the IDGC, where we were later at night. Nobody was left, so we were kind of left on our own to do our own summary. But 2 and 4, I thought were relatively rambunctious.
Yeah,
active.
And really, again, with us providing some kind of a daily recap or after show as intended. I certainly feel like we fulfilled those duties and then some. So when there was a little banter, we'll say, back over on the Reddits, which I generally ignore until someone brings me there, but there was a little banter, we'll say almost accusing us of I don't know, hijacking or slacking or whatever the term you want to call it. I'll admit I got a little defensive about it and frustrated by it because another great case of misinformation running rampant with people who don't know what they're talking about. So
It's all social media.
yeah, I guess. All right, so we do hope that you enjoyed the coverage. One thing that we learned on the weekend is we knew it going in, and we know it even that much more moving forward. Really, the biggest challenge is getting off of a course at 6 or 6:30 or whatever time it is, having footage, but then having the capabilities of someone assembling that quicker and easily to make for various either segments or pieces. And that really comes with the solution is just enlisting and working with more editors. And that was a challenge that we thought we had going into it. We were dead right that we could have used certainly more. And moving forward, if we do have any of that kind of format or that assignment, so to speak, that will be our number one focus, is to work with additional editors to be able to provide more content. I think some people that were frustrated or either frustrated or annoyed or unsatisfied with anything that we did each night is that people tune in and they want footage. Everybody wants to consume footage.
See as much golf as possible,
and
I don't blame them.
Of
that's
course,
what Worlds is. But again, we only have so much. CCDG provided us footage, and we thank them over the top, and we appreciate all the help they provide.
Exactly. So, and there's a reason why you usually see footage the next day, not 3 hours later. We continue to do what we can, but thank you guys for tuning in and watching and partaking. Hope you guys enjoyed it. One
of the great questions on here is, what if the fourth round would have been canceled due to thunderstorms? What would have happened? Someone said co-champions. Not the case. I listened to today to another podcast, Final Round Radio, I believe is what they're called.
Oh, that's cute.
and they had Zach, the TD, on. Mm-hmm. And he had said what they would have done is taken the scores for all the holes that all the players had played. So it basically would have been 2 rounds, a half a round, and a half a round. So they would have taken like through hole 8, let's say on Jackson, and through hole 8 on Fort Gordon. Because that's about where it was. He
added
said,
every single hole that every player had in common, no matter how many that was.
Correct. Because the shuffle, A and B, you can't just say, oh, we're not going to count B and they're just going to do whatever they're going to do. You have to take that account. So he said that's the way they would have attacked it. So I thought that was really interesting and a different thing I never even thought of on how to... A lot of people just said they would cancel rounds 3 and 4 and you'd go to round 2, which would have been... I think a tie. I think it was a tie with Johnny and Ricky. And then you have to wonder, would they make you play it off? Would you just be world champions?
This year you would be.
It would have been this of all years. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Maybe there is something to be said about making sure you get off to a hot start in your round. So from now on, I'm not going to slack during those first few holes of my final round. I'm going to try, just in case they all get called. Well, that is very interesting. And with the year we've been having and the recent history of large-scale events getting challenged by weather, you almost at one point had to think, oh my gosh, this could happen.
Yeah, I was looking, when you looked at the clouds rolling in, you thought, oh my God, this is going to get nasty. But then I looked at the radar and I saw, okay, it's supposed to push through by no later than 6 p.m. That gives us 2.5 to 3 hours of daylight. Our players are halfway done with the round. We're going to finish this tonight. It might be late. If it had to get pushed all the way to 6 o'clock, so we get done at 8 or 8:30, I knew they were going to complete it. I was not really too concerned with that. Short of some nasty storm knocking down some trees or crazy things like that, I felt that we were fairly certain we were going to complete the round. What scared me was when we were sitting in our rental car, outside of all the tents, there was 3 tents. There was the PDGA tent. There was this big blue tent where everyone was kind of sitting and eating. And then I think there was a Domino's tent or something. And the Domino's people are cleaning up. The big blue tent, actually, one of the corners blew off. And I was like, oh, someone didn't secure that. And it was getting really nasty. Then the whole thing came down. And it looked like a giant parachute at that point. And I heard later the PDGA just said, we're done. We're pulling our tent. They pulled their tent down as well. So it was the weather was not, for a while, it was pretty scary.
Well, again, accolades and praises to the staff and to the crew and to the volunteers and everyone that situated or readjusted, recalculated, did everything they need to do. There were a number of players that had said publicly, I believe at the awards and a few other places, they feel like the PDGA handled the halt of play perfectly. In terms of what could be done, what should be done. I thought that was very big because it's very easy for the criticism to get thrown around about you should have done this or you should have done that or if only this or that. There were a few of the players that stated, I believe Johnny McRae was one of the first ones that stated on stage that he really felt like the PDGA handled the delay, the halt in play, perfectly. So. Very nice, good to see, and again, there's never a perfect solution, but it sounds like that played out about as good as it could have. Mm-hmm. So good to see. Out on the board, we see that you guys are actively at it. We appreciate it as always. If you want to chat with us, or sometimes if you want our guests to see it, if you're Ricky, you can follow along on the live chat on YouTube. Once in a great while, we'll pop in and take a 2-second look at what's happening on Facebook. But typically, YouTube is where our giveaways and responses take place, and you're much more likely to have an interaction if you're looking for that on during one of our live podcasts. Award ceremony. Joe says on the board that the award ceremony was small or maybe lightly attended. It's usually bigger, but at that point, people were wet. It was getting later than it typically is for an award ceremony, and people were wet. People had been outside, got caught up in the storm in one way or another, may or may not have had fresh clothes with them, and with a relatively small in terms of amount of divisions, which is 2 divisions, you didn't have as many people in attendance maybe for the awards as we typically do. But I'd like to say real quickly, we did have a great conversation with our new PDGA executive director, Joe Chargaloff.
We're going to get him on the show. He kept jumping and avoiding us.
Well, he knows that he's going to come on to SmashBoxx. He said he wanted to give us kind of that exclusive first interview as he stepped into the new executive director role. So it was great to have a few different conversations with him throughout the week, including a little bit more formal one near the end of the weekend. And he seems like a really great guy, very supportive. And right now he's very much in a information acquisition stage. He's trying to see what's happening, what's working, what's not working, and I think he's doing it right. He's taking it all in right now.
He pulled us aside and he sat and had a very candid conversation with you and I, saying, he basically said, "Hey, you guys have been around the scene forever. You're the smartest people I know." I think those were his exact words.
There may be a quote in there somewhere, yeah.
It's something like that.
Or I said that, and I said, "Do you agree?" Maybe.
That could be.
You must agree, Joe, right?
And he asked us about media. He asked us about Worlds, all these other things, and coverage. And we had a really good chat with him. And he's only been on the job for literally 20 days. And he said all 20 of those days have been filled with Worlds, no doubt. So he's really looking forward, I think, to Worlds being over, and being able to sit and take a true look at what runs the PDGA, how it runs, the numbers behind it, all these other things that he's very good at, which is why he was hired, and get a general idea of where the PDGA needs to put their resources, not just monetarily, but literally physically, and the people, and get an idea of how this sport is running. He hopes that within 10 years, we are able to go to larger corporations and say, "This is our product. You should be supporting us." I think that was kind of what he had said. He thinks it's about a 10-year scale to attack these larger corporations, and he has a game plan in mind, and I trust that he is a good man to follow it.
Yeah, we're super excited. Thank you to Brian Graham for everything that you had done. I recall watching that transition, going from Brian Henniger, who was our previous executive director, along with Lori Gibson, seeing them as that we transitioned into the International Disc Golf Center, which I believe was really a brainchild that was carried out primarily by Brian Graham. with the International Center, then going into Appling, Georgia, and now Brian being there about 10 years, and now the reins are being handed over to Joe Chargaloff, and just really excited about it. I now feel like I'm getting old when I can say, okay, yeah, I've seen the PDGA now go through 2 or 3 executive directors. It makes
3 or
me
4.
Well, I don't know that we were involved with anyone before Brian
Guru?
Henniger.
Before
Yeah,
Henniger?
Guru. I think that he was there when we started our time with the PDGA in the mid '90s. I don't recall. Any interaction, at least, with the person before Brian. So
Yeah.
Brian Henniger, he broke the chain. Brian Henniger, Brian Graham, and now Joe Chargaloff.
Clash Royale says that he would love to see more post-production interviews. He says, Smashbox does them well, but he hates when the post-production guys just finish the video like, hey, congratulations, Ricky won. Boop, done. And I say, there's a problem in that we kind of saw it we started with Paige when we were there when she put her last putt in, and you actually were the one to announce that she was the 2017 FPO champion because someone had Media Marty leaned over to you and said, hey, can you announce this, because he didn't see Downs around, and it turns out Downs was there. I believe it was Downs was there after you announced it, so you actually kind of stole the thunder on that one. But then there really isn't another person to do these live interviews other than you. The Jomez crew doesn't have someone right now, I think, that would feel comfortable putting themselves in a position that you normally do. And I even said that to you. I said, hey, someone's got to get up there after these guys tap out and interview them. And we're not live, but it still has to happen. And I know the Jomez guys, they recorded the interview. I haven't had a chance to watch the footage, so clearly if they didn't put it on there, I doubt I doubt they used any of our interview. But we do have the interviews with Paige and Ricky almost immediately after they win. So, and I think that's one thing that Jomez and those guys could probably improve upon, is a little bit more quote unquote story. They're very, very good at giving you the shot by shot and the play by play, but maybe a little bit extra at the end. I just don't know if they feel comfortable yet, or if they're in a position to have somebody to do that like we are.
And I see them more frequently interviewing a lot of our players after a round. And again, I don't consume all of their footage, but I know that they're interviewing some of the players. And I think every situation is just a little bit different. And typically, more often than not, we are in a live capacity. So getting to an interview and doing that right away is timely on our part, and it makes sense for all the viewers at home. In a post-production sense, it's a little bit different feeling once some of that has possibly worn off, and we've even backed off from the position of, the second that putt drops in to, and getting an interview, to now backing off by just a few minutes, letting them add up their scorecard, letting them throw out celebratory discs, and letting them do a few of those things, because we don't want to interact or interrupt really any of the actual golf component. So they get all of that done, and then having that emotional interview usually right after is kind of the order. So
you have those interviews. Are you going to put them out as
well, I'll certainly release those
blogs?
Separately. Exactly. I'll get those out hopefully sooner than later. I was really excited to get this doubles round put together. So that, again, should be out tomorrow. And then I would say very soon I'll also get those other post-Worlds interviews out. So in case you didn't watch the Ricky, even if you did watch Ricky on Smashbox the other night, or when we ultimately catch up with Paige, either way, I feel like those interviews have a certain uniqueness to them, because they were literally minutes after. They really didn't have a chance to think of anything.
They couldn't soak it in yet. We interviewed Ricky obviously 3 hours later after he had to, I believe he said, stuff his face with as much pizza as possible with his family. But getting that interview directly after they basically he putted out, he threw discs, he signed his scorecard, and then we pulled him aside and said, okay, it's time right now, Ricky. This is your time. This is what we're here for. And then you're able to sign discs. I think there's something special about that particular time. So I believe the same guy asked, should the PDGA force them to have interviews like other professional sports. And actually, it is in the PDGA competition manual.
I was just gonna look
that they make themselves available to media. I believe it's 30 minutes before their round, up to 30 minutes or something like that, and then 30 minutes after, or something along those lines, so that we can ask them questions.
So Paige Pierce,
you're on blast.
You're on alert here.
But like I said, Paige went into what we call a media blackout. She wanted to focus on her game. I completely understand. We're not a big enough sport yet where we can kind of demand our pros sit in front of us and give us answers. Like, I'm just here so I don't get fined, bro, kind of thing. And Paige, being a friend of us and friend of the show, we understand that she had a focus, and we did not want to interject ourselves into that story by any means. So it just made sense for us, and we knew when she finished, win or lose, she was going to talk to us. So.
Well, I'll read directly from, and this is good for trivia or other things, directly from the PDGA competition manual. Section 3.6 is Tour Player Media and Sponsor Relations. This was last updated back in December of 2012, so this has been around for a while. It says, A, all participants agree that the PDGA and its agents may publish photographs and other kinds of images of their participation at sanctioned events. And B, all players at PDGA Elite Series / National Tour and major events are requested to be available to any and all media while on site except during or within 30 minutes of the start of a competitive round.
So don't mess with them before the round starts.
Not within 30 minutes, technically.
And then after the round starts, they're fair game for more or less any media that's there. They're requested, not required.
Correct.
Requested to answer questions and such.
Requested to be available. Now, and I think this needs to be further clarified, because it does say requested to be available to any and all media. If Joe Schmo, who's been creeping in the woods all day, walks up with a camera in his hands and says, "Hey, I really want to talk to you. I've been watching you all day." Like, I don't consider that person any and all
do they
media.
have media credentials?
Some form of media credentials, yes. It's great if they want to talk to everybody, and that's fine, clearly. But I don't know if I love the terminology any and all media while on site, because that term media, as we know, can get thrown around.
It can be a little loose. Yeah.
If anyone knows loose media, it's this guy. Whatever that means.
It just sounds dirty.
It does not. All right. So that was something that is, in my opinion, pretty interesting. I'm sorry, I'm getting caught up here. Will we get to a point, media conferences, press conferences, official signing time? I mean, we've also gone to the other extreme where we kind of scold people, and I will say it again. They may oblige, but don't ask for autographs during a round. They'll more often than not, they will oblige, and they'll have a smile on their face, but deep down, they probably really don't want to be signing an autograph. I've seen it between putts. I've seen it, walking down a fairway. Backups is a little dicier, but just in general, it's best practice, even as a super fan, fanboy or fangirl, don't ask for autographs during a round. Again, you could say, well, I did it, and they smiled, and they were really nice. That's because they were really, really gracious about it, and it's just a good practice not to, because you might get 9 people that are good with it, and you're gonna have a rough day when that one person says no, I don't want to, and you're gonna make them out to be a bad person, and they're probably really not. You just shouldn't do that during a round. All right. I am going to continue to look. Unfortunately, I do not have any updates from Paige. I had sent her a message a little while ago. It was about 30 minutes ago. I had just said, keep me posted and any luck here, and she hasn't replied to that. Unfortunately, again, we can't force her to do anything, we've learned. But she may or may not still join us. And,
technically,
and
we're after the round, so we should cite her the PDGA.
Exactly.
The PDGA requests that you be here, Paige.
All right.
Alex, we do have media passes. A lot of these larger events now do provide us media passes. GBO has done it for a long time. Worlds has done it.
USDGC has done them.
Has done it.
So those are actually becoming more and more common. There is still the next level of how strictly is it enforced. I'll be the first jerk to admit I didn't physically wear my media pass much this week, although I should.
We both should, and I didn't either. And I kind of feel, and maybe it's a little presumptuous, that you and I are recognizable enough where we really don't have to wear them.
Because you think so many people will realize how much weight I've lost. And they'll be like, oh, that's definitely the disc golf guy working on it.
What you should do is get everyone have a normal media pass. You have a larger one, so you look smaller.
That's a great idea. Every event, I show up with a slightly larger one, and people are like, "You are losing weight." I'm like, I sure am.
Jeez. No, and it's bad. And the PDGA and we should be better about it. And we just, particularly this weekend, I didn't, and I thought about it as well. So.
Well, let's follow it up. And this, I know this conversation kind of took place a little bit earlier, but expanding on the media conversation. One of the challenges that we saw, and every personality is slightly different, but we saw that during the third round, or was it the second round, where it was essentially an all-latitude card, including Johnny McRae, so it must have been second round. Yeah, it was. It was second round. The gallery and the spectators were noticeably and sizably larger for the second and third cards, mainly the second card.
When you say noticeably, I would say that the lead card had virtually no one.
Okay. So
I followed that lead card. It had about 8 spectators. You looked down the fairway and there were about 100.
Okay, so that was taking place during the second round in particular. Come the third round, we saw Simon Lizotte on the lead card, and we also saw of course, we saw Ricky then on the lead card, along with Johnny McRae. It sounded from what a lot of people have said. Again, I didn't follow hardly any of that action, but it sounded like there were a few challenges in that there were maybe some slightly disruptive or distracting gallery members, and it sounded like third and fourth rounds I heard, and it sounded like Johnny McRae was slightly, I don't know if peeved is the word, or ticked off, or frustrated, or I don't know exactly because I wasn't there, but I've seen a lot of different comments, and that's one of the challenges that we have as these galleries grow. There's that much potential for a kid to be screaming or a dog to bark, and some of these are controllable, some aren't. There's a lot more potential, and it seems like it affects and frustrates some players more than others.
Well, 2 stories, and I feel comfortable saying this because I did listen to Final Round today, and they did mention it. We were on one hole, 12 or 13, one of those downhill holes on the final round, and Johnny McRae, and the crowd is kind of behind Johnny, and I can already tell he's getting a little bit frustrated at the fact that some of the spectators are getting in front of the guys in the yellow shirt, the people that are waiting, whether it's along the edges, mostly. And Andy from Final Round Radio, he comes walking up. I would say he was 80 feet to our right, and he comes walking up maybe about 10 to 15 feet in front of Johnny. So, like, if Johnny's looking this way, maybe like 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stops and he kind of turns with his camera but doesn't take a picture. Johnny throws a downhill putt, misses. It was kind of a death putt. I don't necessarily know if Johnny was going to run at it or go at it anyway, but Johnny was visibly frustrated. He pulled someone aside and said, "Hey, can you get these guys behind?" He didn't realize that was, and he even asked, he's like, "Is that a spectator or is that media?" And at that point, I was right behind Johnny. And I stepped in and I said, "That's Andy from Final Round Radio. I'm assuming he's media here. I know he's taking pictures and stuff like that." And I don't know if Johnny actually heard me, but he did ask one of the guys to go over and talk to him. I went over and said, "Hey, FYI, these crowds can sometimes frustrate Johnny, and he's more susceptible to distraction. So when he's throwing, I highly suggest being behind. After he throws," and that's kind of the mentality I took, I always stayed behind Johnny, except for one time on hole 18 when I literally stopped before he threw and I said, Johnny, is it okay if I stand here or sit here and film? And at that point, he was so happy. And he was like, yeah, no problem. But there were other spectators that were kind of encroaching. And as I said, that back nine is really tough to hold those spectators where they are. It's up and down hills, and we're going to see more of this. So there was that instance. And then there was right when Simon, I don't know if you even hear it on the video, but just as Simon was about to line up his final putt, way off in the distance, about 200 feet away, there was a spectator with a baby. And the baby started kind of yelping. It wasn't a cry, but it was kind of a yelp. Mm-hmm. And the baby was in a stroller. My guess is under a year old. And so Simon was ready, and then he stopped, and he kind of chuckled, and he turned away like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. The guy took the clue, turned the baby away, and started walking the other direction. Simon walks up, drains the putt.
And then punched the baby.
And then actually threw the baby. It was really like...
It was one of his craziest trick shots to date.
I had never seen...
Simon throwing babies. Look for it on YouTube.
I'd never seen that before, but it was amazing. It was a hole-in-one. So just... People need to be aware, even if you're media, know the players, understand how they're going to react, and try to work around them. But the bigger we get, the harder that's going to be. So
correct. And as you mentioned earlier, and Bobby Brown also mentioned again, the courses can challenge the spectator galleries, and one of the
And all Andy was trying to do was get a great picture. And I would love to see his pictures, because I think he did get some great ones. It just so happens that you have to really, especially with Johnny, you have to really be aware of your situation and where he is. Because, like I said, I knew for following him for a couple rounds that, you know what? Just stay behind him.
Yeah, and the conversation that's kind of ensuing on the board currently also continues to talk about dogs specifically, and I'll be the first to admit I don't think, of course, ADA dogs would be an exception to that. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I'm not a fan of dogs. I know that there's just too many variables, and naturally, the very first thing every dog owner, but my dog's so well behaved, he won't do anything. But there's a million things that can potentially happen when you bring another element of a dog, which you can't just reason with.
You can't reason with. And as we know, if there's, let's say you bring your dog, which is perfectly well behaved. Somebody else brings their dog, which is normally perfectly well behaved, but the two dogs for some reason don't get along and start barking, or it sees a squirrel or anything. I'm with you. I personally think any children that can't be reasoned with or talked with shouldn't be brought in general, or you need to maintain a very far distance. And I was going to say most animals, but I can't imagine an animal being brought.
Well, somebody said, why not cats?
If you can keep your cat on a leash, cats are pretty quiet.
Yes, they usually are.
And most dogs just probably shouldn't be brought to these large spectator events. I think it's bad form.
I agree. So, and as Trevor says, another natural, my dogs never bark, though. Yeah, all of those things. If as you said, if you can't reason with said creature, it might not be best to bring them along. And I understand there's challenges with that. So we hate babies and we hate dogs. Is that what we just said?
Yeah, basically I don't like either. It's what's the worst thing, though? Baby dogs. Some people call them puppies. No, they're baby dogs, and they're the worst.
They are. To clarify a few things, someone had asked, first of all, Eric Oakley, who had aced during the doubles, was not captured or recovered. I said it very early on to our good smashy Dan Harbeck. That's considered a par 4, which that's debatable. But the fact is, it's 510 feet downhill. You're throwing through a relatively narrow gap onto a beach-like area, and then the basket is tucked behind really some bushes or shrubs or whatever down near the pin. So even standing on the tee, you'd have no idea that disc went in, as Eric didn't, and you'll get more story tomorrow in the video. But this again was during mixed doubles. I believe you and I were the only filming people out there during mixed doubles, and we really arrived for second round. I got a few shots during the first round at the very end. This had happened way earlier, and so there was no footage of Eric Oakley's ace. And honestly, I could have been standing on the tee, and I've thought about this a lot. I could have been standing on the tee recording it, watching the disc go. He had no idea it even went in. It wasn't until they walked down there and a spotter said something that they had any idea the disc was in the basket. So short of having two cameras and someone way down at the basket, no one was going to see that ace. So I want to clarify that. And then secondly, there was an ace that Cameron Colglazer got, and he was on the fourth card during the final round. And unfortunately, there was no crews that were that deep either. So Cameron Colglazer's ace was not covered. It was I just barely missed getting over there. I was headed that direction, and I got there literally moments after it had happened. I got a quick little funny clip out of him, but no actual footage of it going in. So I know there's a lot of conversation about those two particular shots, and unfortunately, not captured. We can't be everywhere. Yeah. Okay. Was the water up? No, to answer you, Vincent, regarding the Steady Ed course. That course is a lot of fun. It's a lot more like you would go out and play. If you're going to go play a course tomorrow, I can almost guarantee you the course you play tomorrow anywhere in the country is probably more like the Steady Ed course than it is like the Jackson or the Fort Gordon course.
God, yeah.
5,000-6,000 feet, 7, whatever it is, somewhere in that neighborhood. Holes that are, a number of holes that are reachable. Yeah, it's more of I don't want to say it's a park style course, but it's still wooded, elevation, lots of great shots, trees, water, OB, all that stuff. But it's a more, so to speak, normal. They call it a blue level course is what they call it, where Jackson and Fort Gordon were considered championship level courses. So, all right. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. But footage drops tomorrow. Is there any downside, and maybe this is a question for you guys out there, is there any downside? I don't normally do it, but since I think I'll have all the holes edited, is there any drawback to releasing the front nine and then literally minutes later releasing the back nine, or an hour later or 2 hours later releasing a back nine?
No, I think it's a good plan. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Because it's not going to get... it's not a primary round coverage like we see for singles. I think that it's going to be more... I think it's going to be more well received if you release both nines right away.
Okay, well, they'll be out there. Bobby Brown, Cool Daddy Slick Breeze. Great seeing him throughout the week. Yeah, always a pleasure. The whole Dynamic Disc, well, not the whole family, but a lot of the Dynamic Disc crew was out there. Great seeing Robert McCall and the DD owner, Jeremy Rusko, along with Bobby Brown, Eric McCabe, and then, of course, a ton of the players. But Bobby's asking that some people disagreed with the par on that aced hole because it was, in fact, aceable. And our thoughts, and I totally agree. It would not be by most of today's professional level standards considered a par 4. Mm-hmm. However, I'm not about to go into Chuck Kennedy logic right now. There's a lot of people would argue about a lot of the pars on that course is what how I'll say that. Mm-hmm. If you want to reach out and ask Chuck as to his thoughts on it, that's a totally different story. That's way deeper than I'm about to even dare get into. But no, it's considered a blue level course. And reach out to Chuck. That's what I'll say. I would not consider that a par 4 by today's standards, though. Absolutely not.
Everybody on the board is saying yes, release them back to back.
Okay. Well, they'll both be in the same day because really the front nine's done. I literally uploaded as I got to Johnny's. It's completely done. The back nine, I just have a few holes to go and some graphics to add, thanks to Johnny. But I have to make the thumbnails and blah, blah, blah. So I'll probably hit release on the front nine in the morning, and then literally a few hours later, I hope to have the back nine completed for you. And if you'd like to support those, you can also always do that via Patreon.
I think you should wait to publish it until you have the back nine. Just finish the back nine tomorrow, and then publish them both at the same time. So
exact same time.
Yeah.
You can't watch them at the same time, though.
No, but when you're done watching one, then you'll be able to watch the other one. Because if you're going to sit down for 30 minutes or whatever long that video is, you're probably going to sit down for an hour. You're going to want to watch the conclusion of it. That's
Unless you're watching it on the treadmill. Right. I hate waiting for the back nine when the front nine's already been out.
See?
Well, of course you do. I mean, nobody wants to wait. I just...
And I feel that you might lose some people. They may forget in general if it's not there. If it's there and it just links right at the end of your video, like, hey,
But
watch
it's so
this.
riveting. You're going to want to tune in for the back nine. Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like that. Paige and Kat and Val and Yuli and all those Germ and...
Stop being difficult. I'm always difficult. All right, I think we're going to wrap things up for what's considered a regular show, even though I don't know what's regular and what's not these days. But I think we can wrap things up here officially. We'll move into an after show, talk about some other odds and ends and some random things that are taking place in the disc golf world and community. I will again plug. I'm excited to go to the Red, White, and Boom this weekend, and then I think the following 2 weeks later. Wow, it's like I'm getting sucked into this DD family. Red, White, and Boom this weekend is supported and sponsored by Dynamic Disc. Then I'm going to the Rocky Mountain Women's Championships, which I think is heavily supported by Dynamic Disc. And then I think I'm going to Nissan Stadium in Tennessee with Dynamic Disc. So, Bobby Brown, get used to this old mug. You might be seeing me. All right, we're going to call it. We do appreciate you guys joining us tonight. It's been an awesome night. Now, Robert McCall's on the board. Give me a break. Oh, we're going to have to talk to those guys in the after show. It's been a great week at the World Championships. Thank you and congratulations to Ricky Wysocki for being a gracious winner and joining us in our podcast on Saturday night. Paige Pierce, we're going to hunt you down. We're going to make sure that you join us so that we can talk to you, whether it's in our after show or sometime very soon, as we want to make sure we get your thoughts and input and feedback from your 4th world title that you worked so hard to earn. Congrats to you and your family and your extended family at Dynamic Disc as well. So, for Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, for the PDGA and all of the amazing staff and crew that welcomed us, along with the volunteers, the spotters, the sponsors, and anyone that had anything to do with the very successful World Championships in Augusta. We appreciate you guys. We thank you. Thanks for saying hi. Thanks for supporting and watching and partaking. Again, Terry and Johnny, that's SmashBox TV. We'll catch you guys in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the video credits. If you're interested in being listed as a producer on SmashBox TV's podcast, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxTV.
And welcome to the SmashBox TV podcast after show.
Boom, 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 boom.
Podcast number 149 just wrapped up a few moments ago, and now we are here to let it all out.
A cool one. I see a cool one mentioned. Uncle Bobby Jr., have you ever seen that European video where they're playing urban disc golf in a parking garage and underground? Can you run something like that? Pay attention to Disc Golf Pro Tour.
What?
Yeah, they're running like an urban disc golf
No
event.
way.
So cool one. Go out and look at the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I saw something come through, I believe, on
Well, that was just today.
Today, that they're talking about running an urban disc golf tournament. So take a look at that. I don't know any details. Like, I like to keep it that way. So yeah.
Yeah, no details, but just go out and look for it. If you can, go out to dgpt.com/news. Downtown disc golf. Looks like DD is associated with it. What? I'll be the first to admit I did not read the details here myself, but it looks like, there's some kind of video that talks about it. I saw this cross my newsletter inbox, as did yours. So, yeah, Downtown Disc Golf is presented by Dynamic Disc, a collaboration between the City of Worcester, Discover Central Massachusetts, and the DCU Center, the Vibram Open, and the Hilton Garden Inn.
Is that like the DC universe, like Batman and Superman?
No.
Oh.
Reserve a tee time for Arena Disc Golf. I need to go. What is this?
Just saying, we can look at it later, but yeah.
No, I'm looking at it now because I think I want to go.
It'd be cool.
It sounds fun, whatever it is. So check that out again, dgpt.com/news. And it seems they have information on there. And there's a video that I can't watch or play at the moment, but I will be excited to look at when we're done.
Cool.
So, welcome again. This is the after show. As we just wrapped up, and here's where we do most of our interacting off the YouTube chat board for all of our live viewers here on a Tuesday night. We're pushing about 1:45 to midnight at the moment, meaning our regular show went about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and almost anything's fair game now. We see Robert McCall and Bobby Brown, both from Dynamic Disc, have recently joined the board, so I'm sure we can interact and get some questions or answers out of them.
Did I tell you? I didn't tell you. I kind of told you last week or last time.
You kind of told me.
I was thinking of new podcast ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I want like a really short podcast, like a 10-minute podcast.
Oh, I was going to say like a minute and 30 seconds.
Like a 10.
Don't do it, Bobby.
Like a 5 to 10 minute podcast that's just called like My Crazy Story, and talk to golfers.
Oh, I thought it'd be hosted by Crazy John Brooks.
No,
and
My Crazy Story,
because he could give us a 10-minute segment for at least the next 22 years,
and just talk to a player and be like, tell me something crazy that's happened on tour, whether it's golf related, whether it's travel related. I think I've mentioned this before. I think I mentioned it in the after show a couple weeks ago. I was thinking more about it today for some reason. I was like, I think that'd be kind of fun just to sit down with someone for like 10 minutes and say, hey, come up with a good, give them a little warning. Say, come up with a fun story, something that happened to you on tour or at a disc golf tournament, and let's get it on tape, as they say. Even though there's nothing tape, it's all digital these days, people. Ones and zeros. I think that would be a fun thing.
That sounds like a great idea.
So I just need to get on that.
Get on it. So my little jabber joke was in fact that a few weeks ago, while cutting my in-laws' lawn, I had downloaded some podcasts. And I'm the first to admit I'm not a big podcaster. I do listen to a handful of variety of things. I don't listen to really any disc golf podcast for the most part. And I had downloaded whatever was in the queue for Disc Golf Answer Man, and that's when I came across Disc Golf Answer Man Daily. And I've been meaning to give you the feedback, Bobby, so rather than doing it politely and privately, I'll tell you here on the show, I was incredibly frustrated, and only because at the end of every 90-second or 120-second clip, I had to take my phone out of my pocket and then hit play on the next one. And so for me, and maybe it's a podcast.
Yeah, you should learn in Pocket Cast, the program you use to set up a queue.
Oh, I don't got time for that.
Like it's literally just like a swipe or something. Like you start one. The downside is you need to make sure if you know that the podcast is short. Like I listen to a lot of 20-minute podcasts. If you realize that it's like a 2-minute podcast, line up that next one right away for like 3 or 4.
I apparently wasn't clever enough to do that. So after every like 90 seconds, I was fiddling around and I had to find it, and then I had to hit play on the next one. That's the only reason why I didn't do it for me. But get a better podcast app, better than Pocket Cast, I think is what I use, but
you do.
I don't. I didn't know I had to queue it up.
Yeah, you can
so that it would just go from one to the next.
Yes.
As I'm trying to look now. Oh, I deleted you guys. Never mind. I'm just kidding. It's right here. But anyway, so that's something that I'll have to do in the future.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Dad's Drunk says, this is all you need to know about DD. I met Rusco at the International Disc Golf Center.
I'm sorry. Oh.
After round 3, we talked for about 10 minutes. Then during round 4, while spectating with him, Emac, and Robert, he remembered me by name. So, yes, they're friendly. They're really friendly over there.
They get a little handsy
just the
sometimes.
right kind of friendly. Cool One says, Terry, just swipe right like your Tinder app. That's a good call. Tired of crap, we love you. Not just because you always give us super chats, but he says, and this is a guaranteed way we will read your question, is if you attach money to it.
Did he super chat us again? Thank you.
Yes, Tired of Crap states, hey guys, quick question for you. What program do you use to edit video? I use Magix, but looking for option. Thanks for world's coverage. So I don't think I'm going out on a limb here by saying there's two main
It's secretive.
Maybe there's 3. I don't even know.
There's
2 or 3 main industry standard video editors, software programs. Partially, if you're Mac related or not, there's Final Cut. Is that what they still call that?
Yes.
Yep. Final Cut. Is there still Sony Vegas? I feel like that's a
just
popular
looking,
one.
Sony Vegas.
Always was, at least.
It was out there. It still kind of is.
And Adobe Premiere. Those are your 3, I feel like, at least that I know of, your 3 primary editing software programs. Of course, there's other ones. There's free ones. There's cheaper ones. Those, however, I believe are the 3 primary ones. I think a lot of people use iMovie, which I've never literally ever opened or touched because I'm not a Mac guy.
iMovie is a Mac thing, and it's okay if you're just starting out and you'd like to start editing and you're a Mac person. Go ahead and start with iMovie, because moving into Final Cut, a lot of the same mentality moves forward, but Final Cut has like a billion more options. But iMovie is a good first place to get started.
Okay. Well, and Bobby Brown chimes in and says, I use Premiere Pro for big projects. I use Final Cut Pro for smaller projects like the vlogs. So if you want to edit like the best, that's Bobby Brown. Those are some ways to look at it. Disc Golf Nerd, who provides us some great video content, says, I use OpenShot.
OpenShot?
Which I am not familiar with, which means nothing.
Is that the open source one that I've heard about? I don't know.
And Clash Royale with BMac says, iMovie is amazing for beginners. So there you go.
See, I do know what I'm talking about sometimes.
Okay. Cool One says, why not? Trevor, take Patreon questions before the interview with pro players and use those questions on the podcast. Sounds like pre-work.
Oh, yeah, we don't do well with pre-work.
Come on now. All right, and one of the cool components to our after show is that we have a giveaway. So if you do support us via the Patreon mechanism, of course, our podcasts are free. They always will be free. Continue to enjoy them in any way, shape, or form that you want, whether that's through YouTube Live, YouTube Archived, or the podcast apps. They're always free. However, if you wish to support us and support our contributors, such as Dynamite, Disc Golf Nerd, Paul Ulibarri, and a few others when we have them, that's where your contributions can also get spread to. So go out to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, all one word, and you'll find us there. If you are a Patreon contributor of $2 or more, we also then show your name in the rolling credits of our live podcast shows. And if you are contributing even at the $1 or more level, you are eligible every single week for a Patreon-supported giveaway. I sent out an item or two today to some of our previous winners, and there might be a person or two that I think I still need to catch up with. So if you've got something coming, do not hesitate to reach out to me personally on Facebook and make sure that I have your address and make sure that I have your info and get something sent out to you if you've got something coming.
Somebody asked, or Bobby asked, if we've ever looked into Anchor. I've looked at it. I've never really looked into using it. Anchor is basically, if I remember correctly, I've got a couple people that do use it that I follow. It's like a very quick audio version of a podcast where it's meant more for like your 2 to 3 minute, maybe up to 5 minute type audios. If I'm thinking of the correct. It's Radio Reinvented. It does Anchor. So it basically it's like a memo thing. You record it and then it pushes it out to all the different social media. So it's like a mini podcast thing you can connect up with social media. There's a few
Should I do it?
You could. I don't know why. I've got a few guys who do video game reviews and stuff that I listen to that use it. So there's that. The other thing is someone asked about the Jomez Slomez and the flight tracker shots if they're used with a certain camera. The Slomez stuff is with a very fancy Sony camera that shoots like 240 frames per second, I believe in 1080p. I think that's like a $3,000 or $4,000 camera
at least.
I mean, they've also got the extra viewer and the nice lens and stuff like that. So it is a high-end camera that shoots at very high frame rate. The shot tracker, that's your normal 1080p 60 frame per second. They just use After Effects for that, and it's not an easy thing to do, but it takes probably, I think I heard them say 20 to 30 minutes per shot that they want to do flight tracking for. So it's not easy, but it's all done in After Effects.
So there you go. So ultimately, anytime you're looking at good, crisp, clean slow-mo footage, the key there is frames per second. That's what you're looking for. That's the primary thing that you're looking for. And some could challenge or say something about some of my more recent footage where I've been putting it out in what's with a slightly older camera. I've been putting it out in 720 definition at 60 frames per second. That when I'm recording in that way and then putting it out that way, that gives me the option for slowing things down a little bit more, and giving you a little bit more of a crisper image. However, as we're continuing to move forward, most of the newer cameras are 1080 at 60 frames or 4K at whatever. I mean, they continue to get better and better and better with some of your newer cameras.
Bobby's saying that is actually not like a $4,000. That's a $14,000 camera that they rent. I was under the impression that was one that they bought. I apologize for being incorrect. Yeah, that's a $14,000 camera.
Yeah, I was thinking it was around 8 to 10, but I think that's just the body.
That might just be the body, and not the lens.
Yeah,
okay, so I was confused as to which one they were using. Cool One says someone should donate $4,000 so we can get that camera.
Correct.
I'm not going to say no to that, but that would not help our broadcast particularly. We can't do.
It would help with the post-production stuff that I do.
It would.
If you guys want to see some more cool post-production stuff, I could do more of that. But that would not do anything for our broadcast, simply because we're pushing out again at 720 at 30 frames per second via our broadcast. And an interesting fact, if we when we go from 720 at 30 frames per second and even try to push out at say 1080, we in fact double our. Is it true? We
just about. It's like 75%.
We just about,
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, double our data requirements to do that, and there's just not enough of a difference as we're pushing through all, a number of servers, along with the compression and everything else that takes place. We haven't realized that enough of a significant difference in order to try and push out at a higher resolution. I'm sure that'll come in due time as technology and the cellular and everything else gets better. But we're typically pushing out when we're doing a live at 720. So anyway, that's a lot of random technical jargon that some may or may not care about. But yes, Bobby Brown talking again. The Sony FS7 10K just for the body. That is.
It is the FS7. Okay. Well, and they rent that.
Yeah, which that to me is kind of surprising. I don't know if they got a whole. If they're still renting it. I know at one point they were renting it. I was under the impression that they had went ahead and made a purchase of it. And I think there's some other dealings out there that aren't relevant to the public. But yeah, Sony and Panasonic are best at the moment, as Alex says. Elon Musk is on it. 1 gig internet over the whole world just for Smashbox. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Are you? Did you happen to pull through our patron supporters yet?
I did. They're right here. Welcome
Super
to
duper.
our No, it didn't work. Bummer.
Try it again.
Patreon giveaway.
Wow, and you guys didn't think we were high tech. Look at you.
I got that.
That's pretty amazing. All right, so again, what we have.
What does this one do? I've got all sorts of things.
Does it do it for me? No. Why not?
Because I didn't turn this up for you.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Thanks. All right, so what we have is a list of all of our Patreon supporters. We're going to randomly run through, get them sorted, then we're going to randomly pick a number from a website that's random.org, which is completely
Everyone can go to random.org. It's not some weird website.
that weird. And then we pull from a number, we reach out to said person, said Patreon supporter, and from there, we mail out whatever the item is.
Yep, and this week we're giving away a... let me turn that, make sure that's turned off. We're giving away one of the competitor passes that the players got. So everyone got this little lanyard with a nice little plastic competitor and has all of the courses on the back and everything like that. And I'm giving one away with Paige Pierce's signature on it. That was going to be the whole fun tie-in with Paige being here. I asked her very nicely, and she said yes, if she would sign. I have 2 of them, but I'm only giving away 1 tonight. And it says Paige Pierce 2-time on it. 4 times, sorry, 4X. I keep saying 2 like I'm thinking Ricky. Paige Pierce 4X on it. And I had 2 of them signed. So we'll be giving one away tonight to one of our patrons that will be shipping that. I don't have it with me because it's much like Terry's microphone. It's packed away in my backpack, which had my laptop in it, which I brought back to work for me with me. So it's all at my office. I will need to dig that out tomorrow and make sure it gets out to everybody. So you're getting a signed Paige Pierce official PDGA Worlds competitor badge. So that is the deal. So I've sorted it by first name from 1 to 150. We have exactly 150 patrons right now. Number 38.
Oh, one of my favorite numbers.
Yeah? Why is that?
That's a lot of different reasons.
Okay. The answer is David Garb. Congratulations, David Garb. He is a recent sign-up as of May 3rd. I still have to do months with my fingers. I'm not very good with that.
Not so smart.
Not so smart. So David Garb, congratulations. You win the Paige Pierce signed competitor badge. Hopefully you are a big Paige Pierce fan. If not, you should be. Hopefully Paige is a big fan of ours if she'd ever show up. And stop the media blackout. You won. You can come on our show. So David, we'll reach out to you, get your address. We can get that sent out to you as soon as humanly possible. And I think maybe I'll get another one. We'll give another one away somehow at some point later. Maybe next week. Maybe it won't be a Patreon thing. Maybe it'll just be a general giveaway. We'll see. We'll figure it out.
All right. Well, again, thank you to all of our supporters out there. The question came in is, at what level are you eligible to receive the disc that we're working on? And that is the $3 level.
So Rick Couchane, who you saw on the board, actually gave us the art.
Yes.
Terry has the art, and have you submitted that to...
I was thinking about it on the way here today that I don't know that I've done anything with it, and now I have to remember where he put it, where he sent it.
It was sent
but it'll
to Terry.
Get submitted tomorrow.
So Terry's going to submit that to the manufacturer tomorrow to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the stamp, that everything is hunky-dory. We can get them printed up. We will get those printed up for everybody and send them out. So it's on the $3 level. You can be eligible for the Patreon disc, and the goal for me and the goal for the thing is to give away one a year. So if you're a $3 level supporter, I'd like to have one a year. I have like a little collection. This will be the 2016 one. So I mean, clearly, obviously,
you mean 2017?
No, I'm gonna give away last year's.
Okay.
I'm all over the incorrect numbers this podcast. I'm usually pretty good with numbers, but not this time. 2017 Patreon supporter disc. Next year, hopefully for all our continued $3 supporters, we'll give away a 2018 disc.
Oh, wow. That's a clever idea.
Yeah, I know. Not 19 or 15.
You really are.
2018. So that's obviously our goal, is to kind of continue with this trend, and for all of our supporters at the $3 level, you know, I think it somewhere says you have to be a supporter for at least like 2 or 3 months. So we're going to order a few extras just in case, and we'll send out another one hopefully with a slightly different stamp. So you have a whole collection of them at some point for all of us, all you Smashies.
A little earlier, getting back to one of the questions I saw on the board, I believe it was SD Disker. I feel like I know, maybe. SD Disker, you did hear correctly. I'm coming to the Red, White, and Boom this weekend. I believe Jomez will be there doing next day coverage. It's going to be ultimately 2 rounds, heavily supported and backed by Dynamic Discs. I heard of Johnny McRae, Drew Gibson, who I think is doing a clinic Friday. I think Johnny McRae's doing a clinic Friday. Philo Brathwaite. I believe also Eric and Tina will be there of Team Whale Pants. So looking forward to it. And each of the nights is, I think my focus will be providing some form of nightly recap from the action that's going on, putting competitions and cornhole tournament, and there's all sorts of stuff that's going to be going on. There may or may not be music and all sorts of things going on. So I will be in the Dayton area for that this upcoming weekend. And I don't know where I'm staying or exactly what I'm doing. I think Josh said he might have a spot for me. I'm worried there's going to be 1 million people there. That's my one concern as to the arrangements this weekend. And maybe it's a silly concern, but Josh is a very welcoming and gracious guy, and I worry that half the tournament may all be staying in one location. And sometimes, as cool as that can be, it also can be a little bit overwhelming and stressful. So what else? $3. Yes, you're also shown if you are a contributor at $3 or more as well. You're shown. Ryan says, do you have any more of the Greater Milwaukee Open Glow Firebirds that you'd be willing to sell? My buddy is trying to find one for sale. Ryan, I don't know if there's any more. Did I have some this year? Maybe I did. Reach out to me on Facebook and I can take a look-sees for you. I had very few items remaining with those great stamps. Early flight tomorrow, Bobby Brown says. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Hope all is well. Where are you going, Bobby?
He's probably got to go to bed.
No, I mean, he says he's going to bed. He's got an early flight. I want to know where he's flying to. I want to get up in his business.
He said some sort of disc golf adventure is what he said earlier. I don't know.
Oh, I think okay. Well, good luck, Bobby.
Alex Heimberg says, how's the 360 camera editing going?
Yeah, because you had shot some footage of Paige Pierce final.
I haven't had a chance to edit it yet. I got back. I remember on the very first podcast night I mentioned how some flight issues as I was getting on my flight from Augusta to Charlotte. Literally, I was walking on the plane. I was about to turn my phone into plane mode, and it goes blip. Your Charlotte to Milwaukee flight at 10:30 tonight is canceled. So I get to the airport and I talk to them about that. And I say, yeah, what do I do? And they're like, nothing. Sorry, we're going to reschedule for 10 p.m. tomorrow night. I was like, 24 hours? There's nothing before that? Finally, we worked out a time where they gave me a free overnight stay at Econo Lodge, and I was able to get up the next morning, spend half the day at the airport, and get there. So I spent most of yesterday at the airport. I didn't get a chance to edit it. I'm hoping to pull the footage. It's on my phone right now. I'm hoping to pull it off and put it on my computer so I can mess around with that, edit it, and see what I can do with some 360 video. So I took 360 video of each of Paige's shots. So I'd like to put together one long video where you kind of jump and can look around and see exactly what's going on. So I hope to have that. Give me a week and a half on that because I've never done 360 video before.
Okay. Ryan, sounds good. Thank you so much. Disc Golf Nerd, you says, Terry, I meant show contributors like me get Smashies disc too. So is it $2 and up, right, to get shown in the show? No.
wait.
During the show.
The
show
yes,
notes.
The show notes, in order to have your name added, is $2 at
And
the
up?
end.
Or just $2?
$2 and up.
Okay.
Anyone that's above $2 gets their name added to the contributors of the podcast. $3 and up is the disc, I believe.
Okay. Dad's Drunk asked, Terry, did you guys do anything well in Augusta? Unfortunately, no.
We went to Applebee's one night.
Okay. Yes, after everything was said and done, around midnight or something, we were able to sneak in there and get some food because we hadn't caught up on eating for the day. So that was unfortunately the extent of our wildness.
It was Applebee's watching some Sports Center.
Yeah, so not so much would be the answer there. No, we did not get to take in anything too exciting in Augusta. I'll say when I got home, Sunday night, Monday morning, and on Monday, I comfortably put on a pair of pants and a short sleeve shirt. Not comfortably like because they fit, but comfortably because I walked outside and I was comfortable at that temperature. It was 55 or 60. Now, being, again, a little chilly, so to speak, for June here in Wisconsin, or a little below normal temps. But the last few days have been so incredibly mild here. And coming from Augusta and that heat and humidity, I was expecting to come back to 70s or 80s here, but the first day or two back, it was mid to low 60s, and it's been just gorgeous.
Dad's Drunk said he got to do a bunch of stuff in Augusta. I saw the Laurel and Hardy Museum sign, and there was a small part of me that wanted to go because I grew up watching Laurel and Hardy. My mother was a very big fan of the comedy duo, and so I've seen a bunch of the Laurel and Hardy, and I thought it would be really fun to go there and take some pictures and send them to her, but we never had a chance.
All right, well, it looks like you're getting called out. SD Disker says that he has in fact been a $3 contributor and does not see his name on the list.
Oh, I'm going to have to look at that. I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I probably screwed something up, SD Disker. You might need to...
when the list, it rolls kind of like a credits. During the end of our regular show, it will roll through, like I said, just like a credits, where we thank our various contributors as we close out the regular podcast. So Johnny V can go check his list and see if you're on that, and if not, make sure to get you added immediately. Excuse me. All right. When does that happen? Get used to it, Julie. I'm not sure what you're talking about specifically. Again, editing, denote the compass. Did you send it? I'm not sure what you're referencing, Julie, but if there's any discrepancies that you need to let us know about, we're all ears. Can we agree Simon Schott is a Tamizot? that would be a good way to put it. That is very clever. Disc Golf Strong says sweet, or is that sweat? I'm not very smart. That was nice of you. It was hilarious how your request for Ricky to come up with a question sort of blew it up. LOL, you were thinking trivia. Yeah, either way, it was very entertaining to have Ricky again. If you haven't seen it, I'll make one final plug for it. Go out to the 1 hour and 23 minute mark during our day 4 recap. That's where you can catch up with. I catch up specifically with Ricky Wysocki. He joins us in the show, and we have a very funny, laid-back, candid interview and just overall conversation with him regarding his World's Week. And I'll say it again, it was one of my favorite interviews I've ever done just because it was so much fun. And he was in a good spot. Not that he isn't always, but he certainly was in a good spot.
Oh, is that okay? Maybe that's what his real name is.
You can save shipping on my disc and just bring it to Dayton. Yeah, unfortunately we don't have the smashy $3 contributor disc, if that's what you're talking about. But if you need to buy any other disc from me, if you need to purchase any, tell me what to bring and I'll bring it for you. I wish we could have filmed Eagles Drive on 18. Yeah, I may have gotten his feet. Or I don't even know if I was standing there for that, but I feel like I might have gotten his feet during that drive. So if you want to check out his footwork, I might have that. Robert McCall says, that was a fantastic interview. We really enjoyed listening to it on the drive back to the airport. Thank you, Robert. Smashbox, you do the best pro interviews. Do you pay the players to come on? We absolutely do not pay any of the players. We are so incredibly gracious or grateful that they're gracious with their time and that they join us and that they're willing to work with us. We have not compensated any competitors to be on our show.
Nope.
I selfishly will say I hope we never have to. Maybe we will. Who knows? This sport could seriously grow to that point. But as of right now, and I think especially when we began, and I started doing video blogs many years ago, and there's so many media right now, I feel like it's a relatively fair give and take in that some of our competitors are really well known because of media, because of the little bit of media we do have. Now social media has become that much easier to break into and do on your own. But I also feel like there's some competitors and players, and I don't think I'm out of line by saying I think Batman agrees. Dutch Napier, a few years ago, was on a card at the Vibram Open. He had a really good round. I remember interviewing him immediately after the round. He was a guy I had never heard of or never met before. Obviously a solid player. Fast forward a year or two, and Dutch has a Smashbox tattoo on his calf. And for that, we didn't pay for it either. Dutch just took it upon himself, and I'm forever flattered by the idea that he found us to be important to him, and we, of course, had the pleasure of meeting him and showing him off to the world and putting him on the little stage we have. So, for what it's worth, no, I feel like we're in a good spot. Hopefully, and selfishly, I hope we don't have to get to a point where we have to compensate our interviewees.
Yeah,
I'd like to be making real money before we do. I guess is how I'd follow that up. I don't care if we have to pay people, but I hope I'm making money at that point and real money to be doing it then. I guess is how I'd bring that full circle.
TGN says that Drew Gibson really needs to work on his form.
Okay.
I hope you're talking about his putting form and not his driving form, because his driving form is perfect. Well, it's not perfect because he doesn't hit every line, but he throws with such...
And you're looking for in particular, I would ask that you reach out to me, but I've never really been into hosting an online store. I have thousands of discs, and I'm a rep for all the major manufacturers, so I could get you just about anything, but I don't have an actual online store. Just a lot of goodies.
Power.
He does have a lot of power, and it can go far. Jonathan had asked, Terry, do you have an online store? I really don't. If there's something... my house and storage. Yes, the timestamp is at 1 hour and 23 minutes. That's when you can find them. SD Discer wants me to buy some of his 3,000 discs. Unless you got old school Ontario Rocks, I'll pass. What else do we have on here? That sucks. Eagle. No video of Eagle. He was fourth card. He threw the insane 360, pitched out. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I did hear about that during that round. It must have been a different one when I had just his feet. But
I heard him and Austin Turner both were past the basket on their second shots.
That's ridiculous.
Someone was, maybe it was Austin that was literally past the basket on his second shot and had to pitch. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's considered a par 5.
Ryan says the Ricky interview was great. He was addicted to staring at the comments during the whole interview. I was standing on the other side of the camera watching him, and you can see his focus. And Ricky admitted and said that he's afflicted, so to speak, with ADHD, like attention deficit or whatever he had said. And so my thought was, oh my gosh, this might be some sort of overload for him, trying to read all the comments. And a lot of times, excuse me about that. A lot of times, if a guest sits down at my station, like when we're on site, I will close the comments so that they don't see them. Because we don't want them reading them and not paying attention to Terry like I do. And the other thing is, there are sometimes that people come in and they're not friendly Smashies. So, and Ricky said that there was like one comment that was not the nicest, but it wasn't like too offensive, I don't think. But other than that, everyone was great. So it was kind of funny watching him, just his head kind of going up and down and watching that stream of questions come through. So
yeah, it was. I felt kind of, I don't want to say awkward, but just as Johnny said, usually the interviewee isn't reading everything that's coming in for the reasons you just said. And as I was trying to talk to him, I was watching him read those as well, and I was just thinking like, and yeah, again, some people are real jerks, some people aren't. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Ooh, I do get an update. Hey, I would like to meet you for some fun and along with pure enjoyment of sex.
Wow, this is the after show apparently.
Yeah, some random number. This is no one I know. It's a local number of 414, but yeah. So well, I mean, I've got that going for me. Good stuff. Yeah, that's a pretty random one. All right.
And it's always best when I get to return texts to them.
Go for it. Kept saying Simon was putting for eagle, so 3. And when he said great eagle, he said it was for 4. I told him it was for 3, and they all laughed. Okay. Ricky was cool. It's fun to have a pro can read our live chat. Yeah, again, there's a downside to that because lots of different reasons. As we said, just purely distracting for one, and 2, you put somebody in a completely wrong mindset when you. I'm having an interview with you, and then you're reading, hey, by the way, your girlfriend this, or whatever. You know, insert anything there. And you, unfortunately, we have those people that do
Where
that.
Where are you located?
Ooh. I'm in a basement, already on camera. Okay, so... sorry, Terry, I didn't mean to send that to you. No worries. So many comments during that whole interview. Yes, I think you can toss your disc backwards as long as it's less than 6 feet, but no, you can't toss your disc. So a question was asked earlier regarding the rules. Can you pick up or can you throw stones or rocks or non-disc related items? Can you throw those during a round? And the answer is yes. They wouldn't be considered practice strokes. You can, just like frequently you see, if someone gets a disc stuck in a tree, what will happen is somebody will grab a rock or a stick or a bunch of other things and throw that. If you throw a disc up at the disc stuck in the tree, you could be penalized for that. But throwing a rock or a stick or your Gatorade bottle or a baseball, none of those are considered penalties. Okay. Any GBO Smashbox discs left? Yes, there are some still left. I believe I've sent you the one that you had, in fact, please. Yes, I did. I know I did now, Ronald. But if there's anybody else that wants some, I do have a limited amount of GBO custom SmashBoxxTV discs if you'd like to get at me regarding one of those. JVD's found a hot gal on Tinder. What are you doing?
Yeah,
no, because...
basically, someone asks, I said, I'm in a basement with a camera. I just left work. Sure. I said, send pictures first. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So hopefully you get some.
And this could be male or female, even better.
I don't know. That's the best part.
I can't.
That's why I hand the photo, the camera off, or the picture thing off to you.
All right. So.
You'll have to let the Smashies know next after show how that goes for you.
I will. I certainly will keep you guys posted. Maybe I say we just feed the responses right into the live show and see what happens.
That's true. Maybe that's Anna from earlier.
Yes, from the board.
Good call, Jarrett.
Yes, that may be Anna who joined us earlier. Thank you so much. Dad's Drunk says, found out this weekend that if you throw before the weather horn, you can leave your marker for when you come back and not have to re-tee. That is correct. So when generically speaking, anytime an inclement weather horn is blown, wherever you... I don't want to look. Wherever you were... This is... That is just weird. Isn't that the weirdest and creepiest thing you've ever seen?
That's the photo they sent?
Or inexplicable?
Yes. So it's a picture of someone who looks maybe in their mid-50s, a gentleman holding what looks to be maybe a grandkid. A baby.
A baby.
All right. I'm done with that.
That
ends all the fun.
That is... All right. Okay. We're going to move on.
We're going to move on from that. That took all the fun out of it.
Anyway, so I was saying, if you throw a shot prior to the inclement horn being blown, that shot stands, and technically after the horn has been blown, you should not be throwing any more shots, and you should not be playing from those shots. So here's an example. You're out there playing, three people on your card have putted in to hole number 10, right? They've putted out, they're done with hole number 10. You have literally a 3-foot drop in. The horn blows after those three have putted and you have not. You have a 3-foot drop in. You are to mark your lie with either a natural object. You could use a stick or a rock or whatever, or a mini, or you could leave your disc, whatever you want. But you are to mark your lie with something, and you are to leave it there, and that will be your lie when you come back. And if that means you have a 3-foot drop in, then you have a 3-foot drop in. You technically, by letter of the law or the rule, you should not have 3 people tap in, hear a horn blow, and say, oh, I'm just going to tap in quick, and then still tap in. You technically should not do that. And once that horn blows, all play immediately ceases.
Yep, and Big Germ said that he marked his disc with multiple things. He, gave a good foot mark, put a rock, maybe even stuck a stick because he was afraid that something might wash it away or blow it away, and then at that point, you're not exactly sure where it was. And he said I think he was like 10 or 15 feet out from his putt at that point.
Okay, well, so that is, in fact, how it is to be played. So hopefully, I think Dad's drunk. You say you may have learned something out there, which is
that's good.
Awesome. All right, biggest surprise of the weekend on both the men's and women's side. We already talked about that, Robert. Robert got here far too late, McCall. Go back to the beginning. We talk with Dynamite, and we talk about surprises, so we're not going to rehash that. Yes, my texting did take a turn. What is the difference following the letter of the rule book between an illegal disc and a rock or a piece of the bark? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, but you should not throw a disc to get another disc down.
He's saying that if you had an illegal disc, is that any different than throwing?
So I'm going to carry around a cracked disc, which I don't think you can carry anymore, can you? Either way,
you could carry it. There's nothing stopping you from carrying it. You just can't use it.
So let's say you want to carry around. Yeah, I'm trying to think of carrying an unimproved disc at
one
Worlds.
One of those old turbo putters with the gear.
Yeah, but then use that to throw it.
Throw that to get the other discs.
You're looking for an argument at that point for sure. Yeah, I don't care if your parents are in town. What? So it's okay to ignore them now? But you weren't before?
They're in bed probably. It's late.
Robert, I have a request for you. Disc Golf Nerd is saying, and Bobby is sleeping. Yes, Bobby is running off to something else. Or a disc that is too heavy, like a 3,000-gram wizard.
Ooh, that'd be a big wizard.
Yeah, or 300-gram wizard. Yeah, you're right. All right. I don't know that we have too much. I don't know if you guys have that much more that we could talk about. If you have any questions, I suggest you send them in very quickly. Otherwise, we're going to be wrapping things up here as we have gone on for enough.
I got new headphones, too.
I noticed. Why is that?
Because the other ones were falling apart on the inside, the cushion. So every time I'd take them off, I'd have all these black speckles along my face from the inside just tearing out. So I went and bought a pair of these pretty decent Sony ones. They were like $700. So they're not really $700. It's like $50.
Okay. I was checking out some of the comments also out on the Facebooks. Jeff Spring had asked earlier, Terry, what would you predict your score would have been if you played in Pro Worlds this year? Wow.
Ooh,
I don't even want to.
Do you think you could have shot even? I think you could, but I don't know if you would have. I bet you.
I would have guessed no. Just with where my current state of less than impressive play.
I bet you shoot a couple over each round.
I'm going to go to PDJ.com as I have no idea. I don't expect my rating to move much because I hardly ever play in any tournaments.
I didn't check mine either.
But I am interested to know player statistics. Let's see if I can find myself. I say that all the time. I'm going to go and, what's the easiest way to find my rating?
I'm going to just go
player. Okay, player.
Yeah, I stayed at 943.
And I'm guessing I dropped. I have no reason. No, I believe I stayed the same. 950. Wow, we are too close.
Yeah.
So 0 events played this year. Usually by June 28th. Or 27th,
You have 0 events played this year?
Technically, PDG events, yeah.
PDG events, wow.
So, as opposed to, say, 2007, when I was really into playing.
Guessing I would have ended up at 14 to 16 over par.
Per round.
Not per round, jerk.
You almost confirmed. That's the best part.
No, about 14 to 16 over par. Maybe 20 if I had a bad weekend.
Yes, still 950. I had a great, clever Facebook post today regarding my rating, which I hadn't looked up, but I never got around to posting it. So
you probably didn't.
I really did actually, but I never got around to posting it. Yeah, cool one. That's not wicked high. In terms of our ratings, 943, 950. 28th, I had.
I'm looking at
8 events played.
I'm looking at the ratings of these players.
I once was a 995 rated golfer way back in those days.
Cool, and that's wicked high. No, like I was like a 955 to 960 rated golfer back when I was playing quite a bit. But yeah.
Yes, and Adam Hammes from Wisconsin was very impressive. He had just graduated this month from high school. Many of you saw him on the lead card, and just incredibly impressive.
I think he had a hard time with the lead card at the final round.
And understandable.
Understandable. I mean, he's 18. He's never been in that sort of spotlight before. I heard him say at one point he didn't want to be there. Like he was throwing bad shots and he was hitting.
You can't run and hide.
Yeah.
At that point when you're on the lead card.
Yeah, he's like, I think he said something along the lines of, I don't want to be here anymore. I just want this to be done. And I think we were on hole 15 at the time.
And so Worlds was just a few holes from
it was just a few holes, and he was just done. He was spent. It was kind of sad because every time he'd throw, I think it was one of his buddies in the back would yell something like, "Get in the hole!"
Oh, he's got to be that guy.
And then he'd drill a tree. It was almost every time. It was just unfortunate timing, but I'm going to go on a limb and say, don't be that guy.
Yeah, please don't. Also, coming up this weekend, some people were talking about where people will be. I'll be at the Red, White, and Boom in Ohio, but one of the other large places or large-scale events that some of our pros will be at is over in Delaware. And I was just looking at the list. I see Manabu Kajiyama, James Conrad, Andrew Fish, Calvin Heimberg, Devin Frederick, Mike Mosier, Zach Melton, Cody Bradshaw, all in attendance along with AJ Risley, Matt Bell, all over in Delaware this upcoming weekend. So, hey, this is pretty random, I realize. Maybe someone on the board knows something I don't. Any idea? Cameron Messerschmidt did not complete the Worlds. Do you know that? Did you?
I heard that.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any idea why?
Nope.
Because we saw him out there caddying on Sunday and walking along. He was caddying, or maybe not caddying, at least walking along. Yeah, he was caddying for Greg Barsby on Sunday. I see he signed up for this upcoming weekend, but I don't know, and maybe the board knows, as to why he didn't complete the Worlds week. And if he quit for the sake of quitting, I'd be frustrated and I'd call him out. If he quit because there was an injury or some other very appropriate reason, different story. But I just found it odd because he was there on Sunday. He's playing this upcoming weekend. At least he's on the list. But he didn't finish out the tournament. So I don't know if maybe somebody knows something I don't. It's kind of random only because I saw him caddying on Sunday. That's when I was really like, wait a minute. Anyway, maybe somebody knows something I don't. Yawn, sleep later. Yeah, the reason for my long and drawn out questioning was, can you have a catch during a backup with an illegal disc? Well, for instance, you can't throw like an ultimate lit around. An illegal disc, maybe not. I'm not so certain on that. And I'm also getting a message from, I believe, a Smashy out there. Oh, thank you. Yes, it sounds like Kenny, somebody needs to pay me, he says, for something I sent him. Even better.
You didn't get any more weird texts?
No, that was not. Even more strange, I thought he finished the last round. He played like all 18 holes, but his card said 999. Okay, Robert, so maybe you know something.
Yeah, Dad's Drunk here says that it's a Smashbox exclusive, that Manabu is not playing any more events after Delaware, that he's going to fly back to Japan and he's done for the year.
Oh.
So,
do you have any... I'd be curious if you know any other further insight as to why. Like, he's done because he's burned out, because he's injured, because he's not playing well. I mean, regardless, or... interesting, I guess. But thanks for the exclusive here on Smashbox. Disc Golf Answer Man. Some of those wouldn't necessarily add up. Or maybe the season over there is kind of pretty much done, but he's not returning for a USDG. We'll borrow that, I bet, next Monday. You think Shamrocks has a chance? Seriously? I respect that, but I'd be pretty far out. Pro punchers can't hit Mayweather. All right, you guys are getting into the side conversation. Mayweather. What is that? When is that?
I have no idea, but it's Mayweather versus the Irish guy.
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor, yeah.
Yeah.
Mayweather's going to crush him.
Okay.
If it's just because it's just boxing.
Correct.
So they're not going to, there's no kicking or anything. I think Mayweather's going to just destroy the guy. Now, if there was other wrestling and fighting, I think Conor has a chance, but...
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and call it. It's been a fun night. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the after show. Lots of randomness, as usual. If you don't like that, I would suggest not coming back, because that's what the after show is all about. A little bit of randomness, maybe on topic of disc golf, and maybe not. We'll give you guys... the good and the bad and everything in between. So for Johnny V and myself here at SmashBoxxTV,
and the strange texter,
and the strange texter, and I'm gonna officially call it. Unfortunately, it does not sound like Paige is joining us. I'm sure she's out having a good time, as she should be. It's just unfortunate that I think she was maybe at the whim of others having fun as well. So we'll see what we can do to have a talk with her.
Maybe we'll be lucky and get her next week, or
sometime sooner, maybe some other exclusive interview. But again, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for supporting us. Thanks for the kind words at the World Championships. We're going to continue to push forward. Looking forward to more live broadcasts, occasional wrap-up shows, weekly podcasts, and then some. For Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, that's podcast 149 after show. Join me live on Instagram under the Disc Golf Guy in just a few minutes for the after show, which is even more pointless than this. We'll see you next time when you step inside the Smashbox.